Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains that act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride if you're listening in at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, and on Revolution Radio as we welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin right here in the Great White North, live on this Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast every night of the week because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, paranormal, conspiratorial, extraterrestrial, and so much more. The guitar god Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, is the man behind our theme music. Bumblefoot is the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. As well, you can check us out on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we'd like to say hi to everyone listening in on the Revolution Radio chat room on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. Have you signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet? No? Well, it's time. It's only $5 a month, and with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While at spacedoutradio.com, you can read up on our latest blogs, check out the SOR Space Wire, and if you have had an experience that you can't explain, well, that's why we have created the SOR Sightlines Report. If you've had an experience and you would like it investigated by our researcher, Mike Schmidt, just do us a favor. Fill out a Sightlines report. We'll get back to you ASAP. All information is 100% confidential. What is becoming one of our most successful shows on Spaced Out Radio revolves around what I'd like to call the best-kept secret in modern ufology. Samantha Mowat is quickly building a name and reputation that is leading in helping people understand their communication with the off-worlders. Samantha, who appears right here on Spaced Out Radio the second Tuesday of every month, is coming at us tonight from her vacation that she is on in Scotland. I'm pretty impressed that she felt our audience and this show was pretty important enough to take time away from her holiday across the pond, but that's who she is. That's why she's one of the best speakers on the topics of UFOs and extraterrestrial contact, and we are lucky to have her here. Now, because it's a lead up to Halloween, we're going to talk about the strange parallels that seem to coincide with the paranormal and extraterrestrial. Believe it or not, there are more similarities than you think. What we think is a ghost could actually be a spiritual contact from the star beings. Let's find out how this works. As Samantha's website is Samantha Mowat, MOWAT.com. Samantha, welcome to Spaced Out Radio again. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, everyone. I'm doing really well. I'm pretty excited to be awake. It's 5 in the morning, and the house is quiet. This is really nice.
Wow. I can't believe, you sound like you're right beside me right now, and sometimes modern technology actually kind of trips me out a little bit. Example, you being in Scotland right now. Usually I'm used to you being a good girl here in British Columbia. By the way, I do have to thank you. You gave me a couple of CDs on your way down through. You stopped by the old log cabin here in Spaced Out Radio Land and dropped off a couple of CDs for me. I did listen to them. I did.
Awesome.
And, I'm not sure I fully understood them, but for people who are knowing, they're kind of, it's kind of like a meditation. I'm sorry, the gentleman's name is Dane.
Here.
Yes. And it's kind of like a meditation on how to get into your mental Zen area. And he's hard to follow. If you're a rookie like me, he is hard to follow. But I'm going to take Samantha's word for it because with me, she's never wrong. So I'm going to take your word for it. And that's just that.
Thanks, Dave. It's very sweet. And you will like Access Consciousness. It's a lot of fun. It clears away a lot of that energetic debris. And the best part is it's free and it's on YouTube. How great is that?
I hear you. I hear you there. And they're not really long snippets, which is good, So I appreciate that as we try to open up old Davey here a little bit more because it's been a while since I've kind of been open and, I don't know, getting the feeling after chopping all that wood that it's something that I may need to do. Hey, I have to tell you about an experience that Mrs. SOR and I had the other day. We were up, I don't know if she told you when you stopped by, but late last week, we went chopping down a couple of trees because obviously we need firewood up here for the winter. And I got to tell you, we went along this one log road, and it was a feeling along that road when we stopped and found the trees that we wanted to take down. It was a different feeling, Samantha. I have never felt anything like that before. You get that feeling that you're being watched. You get that feeling that you are being looked at. And you get that, that uneasy feeling that I am talking about in your stomach where it's just kind of like, uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't be here?
Yes, I do.
That's what it was like. But I can tell you this. You know as well as I do, in the mountainous areas where we live, there's a lot of bears, there's a lot of cougars, there's a lot of moose, there's wolves running around, there's a lot of predatory animals that can kill you. Everything from feral hogs, wild horses, whatever. There is a lot of predatory animals here where, they can make the humans seem like we're far down the food chain. And because of help and guidance with people such as yourself in the last few years with me, the one thing that I have learned is to try and figure out what that energy is. And both Mrs. SOR and I, we were there. She immediately felt that we shouldn't bring the little guy out of the truck, so she kept him in the cab of the truck. I started up my chainsaw, quickly said to Mother Nature, we're only taking the dead trees. It's for firewood. This is for your safety because this is what starts forest fires. We're not touching any tree that is green and alive. And
Beautiful.
It seemed to subside a little bit, but there was still that uneasy feeling. I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen extraterrestrials, good and bad. I have seen bears in the wild. I've seen a cougar, even though they'll see you more. But this energy that we were feeling didn't feel ghostly. It didn't feel spiritual. It didn't feel anything like I have ever felt before. And
Wow.
I think I know what it was. I'm not.
And what was that, Dave?
I'm not convinced of it. I think, as weird as it sounds, it felt like Dogman energy. And
Fascinating.
I know in this area there has not been any of the Dogman sightings, but I had never felt anything like that before. And it was just, it was so weird, Samantha, because, like I said, I know Bigfoot's energy. I've seen it. I remember when we were at the farm and we saw the extraterrestrial. I remember that energy. I also remember the other time that we were there and you said, Dave, do you think we should go back into the forest? And I said, no. And you said, why not? Because you were testing me. And I said, because I don't think we'll come back. There's something odd back there right now. And you were like, you are right. You know, there is some very negative ET energy back there right now. And I've always remembered that feeling. But this feeling, it did not feel like an animal. It did not feel like a wandering spirit. Nothing. This energy felt like something was there, and I'd never felt that before. It was absolutely trippy.
Well, that's the thing, though, Dave. Whenever you are sensing that new energy and you have that apprehensive feeling within your gut, this pullback, this heaviness, you need to trust that, because that energetic reading that you're picking up on is going to tell you the signature of that being, and it'll tell you whether it's compatible with you, if it's going to be safe towards you, and whether you should be in that area and proceed or whether you should pull back and leave, which is okay. And I'm so glad you guys had that experience. It sounds interesting.
It was interesting. And, you know, the wifey there, she was very, very timid around that area. It's like, let's just get the wood and let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's try and figure this out somewhere else. Because we went on to different parts of the mountain, and it didn't feel like that whatsoever. Did not feel the same, nothing. It absolutely was just, I can't explain it, Samantha. It was the weirdest feeling, and I really don't know what it is all about. I really don't. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get things going, and the only thing that I can come up with is Dogman. And I am not ready to meet him yet, because from what I have learned from listening to investigators about the Dogman, is it is not a happy creature. You know, it is, you know, we hear, I mean, everybody knows that cats are pissed off just because it's Monday night or Tuesday night at 9:13 p.m. Pacific. But, you know, this is just, it was just totally different. It felt angry. It felt uncomfortable. And I don't know how else to explain it.
But Dave, here's one thing I'd like to mention regarding you and the experience you and Mrs. SOR had. When you're in places that are extremely isolated, especially places that haven't been touched by human technology, there can be different energetic deposits which allow for there to be a fluctuation between one dimension and the other. So let's say when you're out in the woods, you may be in that Dogman's territory on one dimension, and because it doesn't have a strong imprint from something else, say humans living in that area, or depending upon what crystals can be found naturally in the ground, the energy can be amplified in such a way that it's almost like you're layering two dimensions on top of one another, but you can sense it on both ends as to who is in that area on either dimension. So the Dogman could have been sensing you, and you could be sensing it, yet neither of you seeing each other, yet aware of their presence. Does that make any sense?
It totally makes sense. And I'll tell you, I have to go back up there. I have to figure this out. Even just talking about it right now, I'm getting goosebumps, because now that I have pretty much seen everything I can see in this field with my own eyes, now I have to go back up there, because as much as I don't want to see one of these things, I got to see it. I have to see it. It's just, I don't know. It's it's an itch now that I have to scratch. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little pissed off about that because, I got a lot of things I got to do yet. I got a hell of a lot more shows I need to broadcast.
Well, I think you have to. And take a camera. You never know what you're going to capture on camera. So go for it.
I hear you. I'll just remember to put my Zen out there and just make sure that everything is A-OK when I go in there. Try and bless myself with a few Hail Marys or whatever I have to do. Anyhow,
great idea.
Tell us what brought you over to Scotland, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners who are very familiar with you, they are pretty much pretty interested in probably knowing what's brought you across the pond.
Well, one of our family members is getting married, which is always really exciting. But as excited as I am for them joining their life with someone else, I'm more curious to see whether the different ET beings that I'm in contact with continue to initiate contact both while I'm awake as while I'm astral projecting while I'm here. Because it came into my mind the other day when I was on the plane, when we were heading over towards Amsterdam, that, hey, I should go out and buy a map and start taking little pins and marking out everywhere that I know I've had contact and see if there's a pattern going on. Maybe do different colors and see, okay, where have I had stronger contact, which areas, and see if there's an energetic resonance between the different locations and what kind of beings are in contact with me. I'd like to start finding that information out. So I know it's a bit of a tangent off from why I'm here, but I have noticed there's a strong energetic presence over here, but it's not the same as when we're in Canada. You can feel more of the fairy energy when you're in Scotland. You can feel a lot more of that ghost energy, strong resonance of people's energetic baggage being dumped off in the older towns like Edinburgh, Inverness, places of that kind of energetic feeling. So I'm more excited to be up here in Orkney where there's not as many people. Yes, there's a lot of Viking ruins, but I want to go to the Ring of Brodgar again and see if I can bring some beings out to come out and walk around, things of that nature. I'm very excited to do things like that.
And you're there for quite a while.
Yes, almost 3 weeks. It's fun.
Well, I hope you have a fantastic time. And once again, on behalf of our listeners, I want to say to you, my friend, it is absolutely great that you would still take the time to get up early over there, because I'm assuming it's about 6 a.m.
Not even at 5.
Okay, at 5 a.m., that you would take the time to come over here and do this with us. That really shows the type of person that you are. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome. And Dave, we're talking about my two favorite things, consciousness and extraterrestrials. Who's not going to want to wake up for that? How fun is this?
Exactly. Well, let's get into this. Because usually every month that you were on, we get to talk about a different topic regarding the ET experience, and you were quickly becoming a rapidly growing voice in this field. And one of these days, I know I'm going to have to hit you up for your autograph, because something big's going to break for you. That's my psychic prediction for you. And we haven't dealt in this topic yet, because I have to search the realms of the libraries of the log cabin. If you've seen the log cabin where we broadcast, it's pretty impressive. And one of the topics that we have not discussed, and I'm curious to get your information on tonight, is the fact that there seems to be a real tie-in between the paranormal and extraterrestrial. And a lot of people are trying to find that glue that holds it all together, Samantha. Yet, for some reason, the majority of investigators out there, whether they're paranormal ghostly investigators or whether they are ufologists, they can't seem to either acknowledge or accept the fact that there is something intertwining between the two relations, What do you think about that?
To be very honest, part of the reason why I feel as though this bridge has not been gapped, between the paranormal and extraterrestrial is the paranormal investigators are looking at it from a very basic 3D way. They're seeing it as, okay, we have ghosts on one dimension, and then we have humans on another. Whereas the majority of the extraterrestrial investigators up until recently have been focusing on people from other planets rather than looking at the multidimensional aspect of consciousness and contact, which seems to be growing quite rapidly over the last couple of years. People seem to be really drawing that conclusion now that, hey, many of these beings are not just extraterrestrial, they are extraterrestrial and multidimensional in nature. And it does seem like I'd say a bit of a taboo probably from the paranormal that, okay, believing in ghosts is obvious. It's something our cultures and societies have done for thousands of years. But for many of them, believing in extraterrestrials can seem a bit beyond their comfort zone. And the same can be said when it comes to extraterrestrials. Many people do not look at the near-death experience or the fact of past life memories, things like that, being associated with extraterrestrials and multidimensionals and how that could affect things moving around their home. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, and I promise I'm going to tie it all together in a few minutes, but if you look at how ETs work, and the majority of the beings that any of you are encountering aren't actually extraterrestrial. They're multidimensional beings operating on frequencies outside of our visible light spectrum. And as a result, they are able to bridge between one or more dimensions. So they're able to hop from one frequency, where we are, to the frequency that they normally reside in, and even the areas in between. And as a result, when these beings are doing this, they are able to affect whether your lights are flickering, or whether your DVD player suddenly pops out, or whether you hear a beep in your house. I know those sound a little bit random, but I'll tie into them later. Now, if you're someone who's coming at from the point of awareness of, let's say, paranormal investigation, wanting to know about ghosts, and let's say you saw your great aunt years ago when you were a small child, woke up in the night and you saw her standing at the foot of your bed. Well, to you, of course, there's no doubt that there's ghosts. But if you've never seen lights in the sky or craft or a being walking around your home, then it may be out of your comfort zone or point of awareness that things like ETs and multidimensionals exist. And so when people start to understand the energetic vibrations that are happening around them, and how before a lot of paranormal activity even occurs, that they can feel it, they can feel something's different in their home, or they'll walk into a castle and be like, wow, I can feel something, I don't know what it is, but I feel comfortable here, or I'm not comfortable. I'm sorry, Dave, I completely went off on a tangent. What's your question?
You are running perfectly with it. It's the tie-in, and what you see is the tie-in between ghosts and spirits and what extraterrestrials can do on a spiritual side.
Well, what I find interesting about a lot of extraterrestrials is they are able to very quickly read our minds, determine what things make us comfortable. And let's say you're like me and your body's feeling really tired, or you have a really bad cold. So you may have an extraterrestrial come visit you in the middle of the night to do a scan on your body to perform a healing. But rather than presenting themselves as, let's say, a beautiful Andromedan being, or as a Palladian being, or as whatever, if they realize that you're not comfortable with them in that energetic form, they may choose to take on the form of someone who has passed that is dear to you, someone who is what we would typically consider a ghost. And let's say, okay, here's an example. One of my aunts, who's a very lovely woman, was quite sick as a child to the point she had to go to the hospital. And she woke up one time, and while she was in her hospital bed and she was very ill, she looked around and she saw this woman in the room with her. And she looked at her and she said the woman felt like she had a family energy, although she had never met the woman, but her eyes weren't human. They were very large eyes, like not what you see on the Greys. Think more of a hybrid variety where it's very large eye sockets, very large eyes and pupils, but they were just plain black. And she said, you know, if I didn't know about extraterrestrials, I would have thought that she was just an angel, or I would have thought that she was more something along those lines. So for people who have encounters, they may think, hey, I'm having an angelic encounter, I'm having a ghost encounter, when really they're encountering an extraterrestrial or a multidimensional, but they're just not aware that they could tie into one another. Or at least that's my experience and my family's experiences.
Before you started having extraterrestrial contact, did you have a mixture of paranormal as well?
Yes, I've always had a lot of really weird paranormal activity around me. And when I was a child, it used to terrify me. But that's okay.
So, for the laymen out there who are seeing weird things happen in their house, they automatically think it's ghosts. How does one tell the difference?
Okay, so let's say the best way to do is actually trust what you're feeling. And you need to feel the energy of, okay, let's say you're like me and it's late at night and you're alone in the house. And let's say you're in the living room and you're about to go watch something on Netflix. And while you're scrolling on your remote, you feel some really weird energy. I want you to take a moment, feel what it is you're feeling. Because when you feel an energetic shift where your room goes from feeling one way when you walk into it, and then all of a sudden you get this chill down your back, you want to notice, okay, does this feel like it's human? Because you might feel a deceased human that's walking around you, but on another dimension. Or, okay, does this feel like it's totally different, something I've never experienced before, might feel off-world? You need to trust those initial feelings, because on a subconscious level, you're already aware of the differences in energy of what's around you. You can, Dave, like you did earlier with Mrs. Spaced Out Radio, you could sense that this is something that you had not encountered. You could check off that mental checklist going, okay, not Bigfoot, not ETs, okay, not ghosts, not whatever. And I want for your listeners to start doing something similar, because almost everyone I know has had something paranormal happen in their lives. And you need to reflect back onto how that felt within you. Did you feel safe? Did you feel like it was familiar? Things like that, because it'll give you clues about what it is that's operating in your area. For me, a lot of the paranormal stuff, which can be a little bit frustrating, is I'll be sitting in the living room and all of a sudden I'll see something, like whether it's a weird orb moving through the house, or you'll see a partially invisible entity, or you'll feel some weird energetic signature change, and the DVD player will just pop open. I'm like, okay, well, now I've got to get up and go close that before it gets broken. Or you could have really weird things happen, like, oh, heck, even in 2008 when I lived in Courtenay, my husband and I were living in this tiny little apartment, and our bedroom was at the other end of the apartment. He and I were in I think it was the kitchen or the dining room or making dinner, something like that. And all of a sudden, we hear a loud, loud crash. And so we're like, what the heck is that? We run down our hallway. We notice our two kittens were running the opposite way down our hallway. And when we did this, we noticed that this beautiful shell lamp that my dad had gotten in Hawaii years before had fallen completely over our bookshelf and had landed in the middle of our floor. Now, you may think, okay, well, that's nothing a lamp can fall over. Well, no, because I had crystals and other things on this table. How could this lamp have fallen over completely and not knocked anything else over? My cats were prone to sleeping in the sink at that time. They weren't big enough to even climb up onto the bookshelf. And I remember thinking that was really odd, but I remember feeling this really weird energy, something I didn't recognize at that time. And if I had known then that it was just this one variety of ET that wasn't making itself fully visible to me, I would have associated it. I had associated it as ghost energy, when really I should have put it into the multidimensional and extraterrestrial category, because they were who had messed around with my lamp and decided that it wasn't something that was working energetically. Do you understand?
Absolutely. So what are the signs that people could look for to spot the difference? Is there a sign to absolutely do that? Like, say, for instance, can you tell the difference? Is it just the feeling and energy, or is it something completely different where it's going to look similar to people who aren't trained?
I would say it would look similar overall to people who aren't trained in energy. To be honest, Dave, the main thing you have to really focus on is feeling that energy out. Because typically extraterrestrials have a very methodical energy where you can feel them calculating their thinking. You can have a harder time reading what it is there. You don't really feel emotion so much as you feel being watched, and you can feel them almost thinking of their next step, gauging you and what you're doing, and not really having that strong energetic signature. Like, Dave, do you remember when that dear friend of ours, Pascal, was doing energy work on me? He's like, okay, can you cry for something? Why are you not expressing? Because people should be crying that by now. I'm like, well, I don't feel the need to. And how that had taught him that people that are more of a star origin don't necessarily have that same energetic or emotional reaction to energy work as people who are more angelic.
Very
it's
correct.
kind of similar to that, where if it's, let's say, an earthbound spirit or your deceased Aunt Debbie or whatever, you will feel, like, let's say it's someone you know who's passed, you will feel their energy. You will feel, do you remember how with good friends, how you can often feel whether that person always made you really happy, or it just kind of has that sensation of them? Or you might smell them. If it's a deceased loved one, you're going to smell things more. You might smell their cologne, you might smell their perfume, you might smell tobacco smoke, things of that nature. Whereas with extraterrestrials and multidimensionals, I don't typically smell them, and I have a very sensitive sense of smell. So for me, when earthbounds are coming around, I tend to feel nauseated because their energy it's more of a sinking feeling. It has a heavier vibration to it. So it almost feels like it's pulling you down a bit. Or at least that's what I find.
The questions are starting to pile up here. So what I would like to do is ask some of these questions here. KJ in the SOR Space Travelers is asking, some ghost hunters run into alien spirits. Have you ever heard of that happening?
Well, yeah, because you can have extraterrestrials that are passed here on Earth that aren't picked up by their families or by the beings that they work with on craft and aren't taking them home if they get stuck in limbo on one dimension or another. I've heard of it, but I haven't encountered any ghost spirits, but I have encountered a lot of multidimensionals.
Mario is asking, Samantha, there are aliens that like to hide behind a human facade. Why is it that some people can see them for what they are, but others cannot?
Well, Mario, the only reason that some people can see beyond that human facade, whereas other people can't, is if you're more aware when it comes to energy. And I'm sorry to always bring things back to energy, but if you truly want to understand this universe, you do have to realize that everything is energy. If you learn how to see energy, so whether it's seeing little sparks in the sky or seeing a faint outline around someone, you're developing your clairvoyance more. And your clairvoyance is your ability to see multidimensionally, and that can allow you to see beyond when something's projecting an energetic facade of when, like, let's say I'm a gray ET who wants to pretend to all the beings around me that are on a human perception that I'm a human. Then I have to focus my mental energy, my psychic abilities, out in a broadcasting area going human, 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 and it can focus in its mind what it is it's choosing to project. Now, if you're someone who's more, let's say your ability to perceive energy is stronger than that of most people around you, that gray will only have to project a certain vibrational frequency for 90% of the people. It may not expect to see that odd 10% that can actually see beyond the facade. And let's say another way in which you can actually better understand it or sense beyond that is when you meet someone. Mario, have you ever met someone and you feel them and you're like, oh, you are not human. You do not feel human. There's something different about you. I can't quite put my finger on it, but you don't feel like you are who you're pretending to be. You feel like your energy isn't quite right for what it is everyone else is seeing. You can be picking up on the energetic signature being almost not quite accurate from what it's projecting to everyone else. You can feel like it's not in harmony from what it is other people are reading. That is the best way I can describe that. Everyone is clairvoyant. It's just a matter of to what degree they're using their clairvoyance and accepting what they see. For most people, if they are walking down the street and they look at someone and all of a sudden they see reptilian eyes on the man they're walking right past in the opposite direction, they'll probably just give their head a shake and be like, I didn't just see that. That was weird. And not think twice about it. well, that's them seeing interdimensionally, or they may see a partial outline of a being behind them, be it invisible or a black smoke being or something attached onto one of their chakras. People see that kind of stuff quite frequently, but they dismiss it as tricks of their eyes, or, oh, I'm just tired, or I should have stopped 1 pint, not 2, things of that nature.
We have another question coming in from Daryl here, and she is asking, have you ever had an experience where it felt like your house is moving and everything is shaking, but you know it's not an earthquake?
No, Daryl, I haven't, but if I do, I will definitely take note. I didn't know those kind of experiences happened.
We'll get to her.
But thank you for teaching me something.
We'll get to her second part of her question. She is saying, when getting an audio example, clicking noises or hearing screams across your city, what entities could be making those sounds?
That depends, and I need to bring this into 2 areas. The first of which is if you're in a home that has a lot of heavy energy. So, when you walk into someone else's house and that person is depressed or dealing with drug or alcohol abuse, things of that nature, how the home tends to feel really heavy and kind of like the air is thick and uncomfortable to be around. Well, in places like that, you'll normally have what's known as earthbound spirits, which are people who are operating in the lower astral dimension. And when those people sense that someone is able to, let's say they're more untrained when it comes to their clairvoyance or their clairaudience or their natural medium, but they don't know it, yet they're still picking up on those other frequencies. Sometimes people that are living in the lower astral will mess around with us by, I do hate to be very honest about this, but they will end up doing screaming or just doing stuff to freak us out, razz us, or play with us because they're bored. I know that may sound a little bit weird, but it's not. It's a different life over there, and their forms of entertainment are different. Now, when it comes to extraterrestrials doing things like screaming, or I don't get them screaming, but I do get the clicking and the buzzing. That can be very frustrating. You can be receiving downloads of information, which could be part of why you're hearing clicking, buzzing. Or you could be hearing beings such as the manta, mantis, or mantid, depending upon where you are, beings. Part of their language or dialect can consist of a series of clicking or chirping type noises. Now, I have also heard some very odd noises from reptilians, and they can sound almost like a slight click, but I don't quite know what those ones mean, but I have noticed it around them once or twice. That's all I know about that part.
Let's continue on. Shar is asking, you know how spirits take and move objects around houses, maybe a chair or opening a cupboard? Can extraterrestrials do that as well?
Yes, they can, and just as easily as spirits. In fact, I would be more inclined to think that most paranormal activity, especially around our homes, be it pens being moved, things of that nature, is more extraterrestrial and multidimensional than paranormally based. In my experience, and this can be a bit of a frustrating one, extraterrestrials don't even just have to be in homes to really knock stuff over, or if they're feeling annoyed with us, they can move things. Oh, let me explain to you one thing that I've noticed. I do have one group of beings that I don't work with them, but they are annoyed by the fact that I am making my YouTube videos. And even this spring, I would take my dog out into a field. And this one time, while I was setting up my camera and just looking at my encounters, going, okay, what do I feel compelled to talk about today? What feels like a good choice, or what do I feel people are going to benefit from learning? I felt this energy off to my left. And as I'm partially looking down, I noticed this blur of whitey energy go from directly in front of me, moving very quickly off to my left. And then I noticed my dog's head following its path. I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing it, you're seeing it, that's fine. It feels ET. It didn't feel threatening, but it felt like it was slightly irritated, or as though it was uncomfortable with what I was doing. And so the next thing I notice, I'm like, okay, you know what? This has too much activity in this spot. Let's go that way a little ways. So she and I walked for about 10 minutes. And when I set up my camera again, my battery was charged when I left my house about a half hour before. My camera was turned off. I had no reason for my battery to drain. Try as I may, my camera would not turn on. I knew it was associated with that multidimensional being that I had seen walking around. So I was a little annoyed that day. But getting back to what you said about multidimensionals, being capable of moving things around versus paranormal. This summer, I was doing a bunch of videos, and I was in a place called Seal Bay. And while I was there, I saw that same white blur moving around. And I thought, okay, whatever. I'm talking about multidimensionals. I'm talking about how other people can learn how to see them. That's fine. And I noticed my dog, who was about 10 feet away and tied up away from my tripod, and she was just tied on a leash gently so she didn't wander off. I noticed my tripod and my camera, which are about 5, maybe 7 feet away from me. All of a sudden, my camera, which was screwed into my tripod, fell off completely on its side and cracked right open. And I remember saying, really, did you guys have to knock over my camera? You could have just turned off the battery or something. That would have been a little bit nicer. Things like that are common from some multidimensionals that have more of an ET energy, things that people would often, if they saw them in their full form, would mistaken to be extraterrestrial because they have very similar bipedal forms, similar to grays, similar to tall whites, in the sense that they are naked, very thin arms, very multi-digited fingers where they almost look like you have an extra, when you flex your fingers up and down, that extra joint, from what I've noticed, that's what I've noticed around these white ones. And they're the only ones that seem to be giving me some grief around making my videos. So,
why would they give you grief over making your videos?
Different beings have different objectives for what they want us to do. Like, you gotta remember, Dave, the beings that are more wanting for me to make these videos are beings like Phoebe and my little brown guy and Danny and the Palladians I work with, ones who want to show that there is an extraterrestrial multidimensional contact occurring on planet Earth, that you can still be a very normal person, live a very normal life, and yet not, and they want people to understand how not only it occurs, but how it's been occurring to many, many people. Yet some of the beings who aren't as comfortable with, let's say, coming out of the shadows or coming out into the open, they're not as ready for us to all be aware of them, because if we're all aware of them, it changes what their own objectives are.
Let's get to another question. This one from Stone. She is asking, have you seen the shadow building yet, Samantha? I've seen those along with the dimensionals.
Shadow building or shadow being? If you're seeing shadow buildings, you may be seeing the lower astral. If you're seeing shadow beings, you're seeing a being that is operating probably on a vibration that's either too high to let in a lot of its light, and that's why you're seeing it dark, or you can be seeing a being that's operating on a lower vibration, and this is as high as it goes. You need to sense the energy that's coming out of that being if you do see shadow beings. One thing I want to say around if it's shadow building, if you're seeing the lower astral, then you know that, okay, I need to get my energy in check, because when you're operating in a vibration where you're interacting with the lower astral, your vibration's at a point that is very easy to feed off of for the beings that feed off of our energy when it's in a low state, and you need to raise your vibration before they siphon enough of your energy to make you ill or exhausted or things of that nature. So yes, I have seen shadow beings and shadow buildings. So
that intrigues me. Totally intrigues me. What about shadow people? Where do they come into play? Because that's a whole different dimension when it comes to dealing with regular spirits and extraterrestrial energy as well.
I agree. I didn't know they were actually called shadow people for a long time. I just called them black smoke entities because when I saw them, I just thought they looked black and kind of smoky. So that's what I've always referred to them as. Shadow people are interesting because when you're seeing them, typically I've found that shadow people are operating on a vibration that's lower than ours. They don't seem to have the same energetic signature as our deceased loved ones or people living in the lower astral. I do find there to be a distinct difference in the sense that people in the lower astral have a denser vibration, whereas shadow people feel like their vibration can still go between walls very easily, still be very smoke-like and very light, not light as in peace, love, and light, but as in not having a heaviness possessing it. One thing that I've noticed around shadow people is they don't typically enjoy interacting with me. The few encounters I've had with them, it's been things like astral projecting, finding myself with another psychic woman I know, And she and I astral projecting and finding ourselves in a wood, like in a wooded area, and those beings saying that they didn't want us in that area, things of that nature. I don't typically see a lot of shadow people, but I found them to be more common in the lower mainland, where there is a lot of humans living in close quarters. And I found the main reason for that is they seem to have certain areas that they like to occupy. I don't really see them as much in nature. That's not where I find them. Part of my speculation around them, judging by my experiences and what I've noticed around them, is when I've noticed shadow people, I'm going through periods of emotional distress or a lot of heavier energy times. I don't typically find them when you're operating at a higher vibration. But that's more what I know about them.
Mike is asking, I just got to find it here. He goes, Samantha, do extraterrestrials abduct or visit family members if they are getting to you, for instance, mother or son or daughter, whatever the lineage may be?
ET contact is a family affair. And the hard part I find with contact is when I get together with my family and I talk to my cousins. Some of them are in Ontario, some of them are back east in Labrador or Nunavut, that type of area. And it doesn't matter who it is I talk to, they've all had contact. And it seems to be the same few groups that seem to be interacting with them. And that's okay, because for the most part, I've found we do have benevolent beings interacting with our family. And that's all right. But some families do seem to be plagued with beings that have more of a menacing agenda or an inconsiderate approach towards the humans they're interacting with, which seems to be more common within the States rather than Canada. Although one thing that I have noticed is with the beings that interact with my family on both of my parents' side, it does seem to be the same three groups that are interested in them. There is a variety of gray, but they're a very benevolent gray. There are the Andromedans, and there are a white being that looks very similar to Danny, so I suspect them to be Arcturians. But I have not seen their eyes glow because their eyes often look black. And it doesn't matter if I'm asking my cousins or my siblings or that. Yes, Dave?
Once again, you've mentioned Danny a couple of times. Our regular listeners may know who that is, but I'm just wondering for our newer listeners if you wouldn't mind describing who Danny is.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Danny is this being that... Okay, let me explain this properly. When I was being born on Earth, I'm a twin. My twin decided not to incarnate. He decided that, I'm going to be a brat and incarnate with you for 5 months in the womb, then I'm going to pull out, and yet your energy could stay here, and you will do the work on this side, and I will do the work on the other side. Danny chose to return back into an Arcturian body and to interact with me throughout my life, but on more the ET level, so came to see me quite regularly in that sense. Whereas I'm here on this side, doing the work on this side, and it's kind of like we're working together as partners. That's the best way I can describe the relationship he and I share.
So it's a brotherly, sisterly thing.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship.
Why would you describe it as that?
Well, Dave, let's be very honest here. Working with ETs and having this much ET activity in your life, it can be very hard to maintain a sense of normality around your family. Like, even last night when I'm seeing some of my cousins that I've married into the family, and like, oh, what's new? Like, okay, do I tell you right off the bat, well, I'm doing a lot more stuff with extraterrestrials and multidimensionals, or you just mention about some of the family stuff until you've seen them for a couple days? That's where it's a bit of a love-hate relationship, when there's a large component of your life that you do have to determine how much you share with each person you interact with, and always trying to have that gauge out there, which is frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I love that answer. Love that answer.
Thanks, but getting back to the question regarding family, one thing that I've noticed in this is for my family members who didn't seem to be more psychically inclined, the ones who didn't trust their intuitions, the ones who seem to be more fear-based, they have all started to have negative encounters as time has gone on, and the benevolent ones seem to stop working with them, and those people tend to go towards drug use, and more negative beings start to come into play. And that could be a little bit frustrating when you see, like, let's say your sister having a lot of really negative reptilian encounters, or you start hearing about your aunt being followed by really bad greys, and the good ones staying away from her because she keeps pushing them away because she's afraid of all of them. That seems to be a very common thing with families who have contact. And people don't realize that. They think, okay, well, all greys are the same, or all reptilians are the same, or things of that nature. Well, no. In my experience, that's not true. But what I've noticed is for the family members of mine who are more fear-based, who don't have that self-love, who don't have that universal love naturally within them, and who focus on that fear energy, they do tend to get wrapped up in doing a lot of drugs and abusing alcohol, and that opens them up to contact with the more negative vibrating beings. So the not kind reptilians, the not kind greys, things of that nature. One of my aunts, she's a very wonderful woman, a very sweet woman, but she overused drugs for quite a while. And she was in BC a few years ago, 7, 8 years, I guess now. And when she was headed back towards Ontario, she called my mom a few times saying, I can't do this, they're following me, the greys are following me. And we knew right away that, okay, well, it's because she was operating at a vibrational state that was allowing fear to really be her main resonance. And that's part of why those beings were associating with her or being fascinated with her. Versus other people in my family, some who use psychedelics, tend to have more of the negative reptilians hanging out with them. So it really does depend on they know what families are prone to contact. You're going to have a lot of beings intrigued by you if you are a family that has contact. It's not just one group. It never is. They pay attention to the vibration you're emitting. And so for me, for all the people I interact with, I always try to get them to raise their vibration, let go of that fear. Because if they're going to have contact, you want it to be good contact. So I hope that helps you better understand.
Always does. That's why we have you here. Robert Rose is asking, saying his wife, Mrs. Rose, has reported reptilians wearing military fatigues and Roman armor. Have you ever heard of this?
I know the reptilians, in my experiences, have had a strong association with the military. You're probably just seeing more of what their different commanding officers are wearing. I don't often see them wearing clothing. When I see reptilians in their form, they're either partially masquerading as humans, or if I do see them in full flesh, then they're normally naked or very partially covered.
It almost sounds like it's almost MK Ultra related.
Very much so. Actually, no, my lab. Because that'd be your military abductees.
Right.
It'd be interesting for him to ask Mrs. Rose, okay, what are you having happen when you see these beings? Are they showing her respect? Are they putting her through training scenarios? Could you please get her to start keeping a journal and write down even the most odd things? Like, one thing I find is a very common one for me when I find myself in a MyLab scenario is zombie apocalypse dreams or things like that, where you encounter the same people over and over, and it's very frustrating, but it does seem like it's a training scenario that they keep running through us. If she doesn't like finding herself in those situations, she can astral project out of them, but she has to determine a fixed location she'd like to astral project to. So she can either create a mental place that she likes to go to in her mind, like a meditation sanctuary or a favorite park, something like that, to pull her energy out of there if she's not comfortable.
All right, moving on. We'll probably have time for one more question here. We got about 3 minutes, Samantha, before we got to hop out for a break. This comes from Ron. Ron is asking, Samantha, have you ever time traveled back? Or traveled back in time? Let me say that the English way.
Offhand, not that I can think of. But I do recall most of my past life memories. Well, not most. I'd say about 20, but most of the ones that have come forward so far.
20?
Ron?
20?
About 20 now. 20.
Holy
cow. I have
cow.
a pretty good idea of who I am.
Holy cow. I've only got one. One simple one. And you get
That's
20.
okay. The first one I remembered was a really simple one.
Yes. My last incarnation was World War II.
Me too. Where were you?
I was shot down twice in World War II. I was a fighter pilot. And Derek White Skycloud actually pulled this out of me. I was a fighter pilot, and I was injured the first time around. I got healthy. I went up the next when the Battle of Britain had started, and I got shot down by the Germans. And there was no getting out of that one. I was killed in the cockpit before I crashed.
Well, Dave, I'm glad that we are working together in this life. That sounds nice. I was actually on the other team last life, but that's okay.
Was it you? It could have been James Tyson, too, because he was on the German side.
Yeah. I grew up as a young man when I was, in my last life, I was German. And I was wondering why for the longest time, like, okay, why do I have such an obsession with World War II? Convinced I was a man. I had some really mixed up ideals about what to expect of women younger in life, but that's okay, because I carried way too much of my last energetic signature over. And one thing I wondered is, why do I keep feeling like I died in the States? Why do I keep feeling like I died in the 50s? Because I did, and that's okay. So it was kind of interesting for me to look at, okay, I was working with the Nazis in my last life. I wasn't one, but a lot of people get stuck working for people that they're not happy to be working for, but they're in it because they're obsessed with learning more. And one thing my guides have told me in this life is, we need you to be very careful. We don't want you working for them again. We don't want you bringing forward more ancient consciousness tools for them to use. We want it to be on helping humanity this time. We don't want you to be falling down into that trap again. And so that's something I'm trying to be careful of. Yes, Dave.
And on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to hop out for a break here. We're also going to try and connect up with Revolution Radio right after this, because we've been having some Skype issues with them the last few nights. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. Samantha Mowat is our guest. We'll be right back.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFOCOP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird? Right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mowat. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I think we finally got our technical problems taken care of on Revolution Radio. It seems we are back running live on there. So it's good to have you along for the ride. If you're a listener of Revolution Radio is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. Get on it. Get to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight. Hybridization. I am so thankful that he has actually given me a password that I can pronounce. Thank you, Bill, for actually showing some love this way. Hybridization is your password. If you're an SOR space traveler, use it exactly the way you should if you are a member of the team. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. You can also read up on our latest blogs. Check out the SOR Space Wire by Eric Markham. And if you're an experiencer, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Just click on it. There's a whole page for you to fill out of information. Mike Schmidt, our investigator, will get back to you ASAP as we want to file that report. And your information is 100% confidential. Remember, you can also listen to us on TuneIn, as well as you can download this show and others on iTunes. Samantha Mowat is our guest tonight. Samantha is a monthly contributor to Spaced Out Radio, the second Tuesday of every month. Usually she's in British Columbia with me, but tonight she's actually in Scotland. Welcome back, Samantha.
Thanks, Dave. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. It's very good to have you along for the show. And we're going to continue with our audience questions here, if you don't mind, Samantha.
Of course, please do.
Shar is asking, it doesn't make sense if extraterrestrials don't want to hurt us, then why would they take us and use some of us as guinea pigs?
Well, sure, that's the thing. You can't summarize or categorize all extraterrestrials and multidimensionals into one category of good or bad. There's just as much diversity within their intentions, within each being, as there is within you and I as humans. Some beings as a whole have more of a benevolent nature towards us, just like how some people as a whole, be it different groups, be it vegetarians or whatever, are kinder towards animals than people who are otherwise. We can't really categorize them very simply like that. And that's something I learned the hard way. And the reason why some of them do treat us like guinea pigs is to some beings, we really are nothing more than a food source. We are nothing more than retarded cattle. I hate to say it, but it's true. To other beings, we do not necessarily understand why they are looking at our bodies, why they are looking at our consciousness, or why they're abducting us, because their agenda behind such is at something we can't necessarily comprehend. But from what I've noticed, the majority of extraterrestrials I've had contact with are benevolent, but all it takes is a couple bad apples to make it so the entire batch seems bad.
Let's go over to Stone's question here for you. She says, hi, Samantha. Have you ever seen the tall and short grays with the dimensionals, and have you accessed these dimensions both through dream state and waking hours?
Yes to all of them, Stone. One thing I've found within grays is there seems to be, if I were to take a guess, probably dozens, if not hundreds, of different types of varieties of grays. I had thought for the longest time there was only one variety, and yet the more encounters I find through astral projection, which tends to be when your soul leaves your body, or whether it's them hovering above my home when I'm waking up in the middle of the night sensing that there's craft outside, or waking up and seeing a being moving around my home, or seeing them walking throughout the woods, things like that, they are able to access this dimension quite easily. They have no problem popping from one dimension into another. But for the most part, I've noticed that the smaller grays do seem like they're a bit kinder than the taller ones. So as a whole, I find them to be a little more pleasant to interact with.
Claudia is asking, in all the extraterrestrials that you have had contact with, do they like music or singing?
They do seem interested by music. One thing that I've noticed is, for some reason when I'm with them, we don't tend to use our voices. We use more telepathy rather than singing or speaking with our mouths. But you can still send the same energetic signature that would come with singing with your mouth through your telepathic communication. And a lot of the groups don't seem to have the creative focus or energy to really create songs on their own, but they do seem to have an appreciation for it. One thing that I noticed is with one of my hybridized children, he seemed to really love me picking him up and rocking him back and forth and singing to him. Or when I'm feeling really playful and I encounter Phoebe or my little brown guy, I will end up either singing with them or doing something similar along those lines, and they seem to send a lot of radiant, loving energy when I do it, but I do not see them singing and to reciprocate with us. I haven't noticed. I've never, in my Palladian encounters, tried doing that with another humanoid. And I can try that next time I see one, but I had not thought to do that with them. But I will let you know.
Update from Robert Rose on his question about his wife seeing the reptilians in military garb. He says they wore them in ranks together. Her father was a former United States Marine. They yelled at her to go to sleep. As well, she is Rh negative, and both Robert and his son are autistic.
Okay, so getting back onto that for a second about Robert Rose and his wife. They're probably following the genealogy with that family. They may have a higher percentage of DNA that is more reptilian. We all do have reptilian DNA in us, and that's all right. But one thing I've noticed is a lot more of the Rh negative people do seem to have contact, and I believe that's because we do have more activated DNA, not necessarily even more ET DNA necessarily, just perhaps more easily activated with contact with these beings. Getting back onto the reptilian component of that, though, I have noticed in my experiences that the reptilians are huge into being meddlesome when it comes to our health. If she may find that after her reptilian encounters that she gets sick quite easily, be it bronchitis or something along those lines. Quite commonly after an encounter that's a MyLab scenario, I find that if I'm having a lot of MyLab stuff going on, my bronchitis flares up. And then I find the other groups try to counteract it and then try to make me better again. So it seems it gets a back and forth battle between it. As to your son being autistic, it's probably because he's part of the new children, the children that are here, because they can't be programmed as easily into the old way of life that many people, particularly our older people within society, have been more programmed than our current children, than even our younger people. But you have to remember, each generation seems to be have a decreased ability to be programmed compared to the successor generations before them. So part of the reason why her son may be having this, may have noticed that, or that she is having encounters and that her son is autistic, is a means of trying to slow down that DNA from activating as quickly as it's going. If they notice your DNA activating and almost like your quote-unquote light shining, they will do everything within their power to try to squash it, because some of the groups that we do have on this planet are less than thrilled that humanity as a whole is waking up.
Mike has a question here. He is asking, can any negative forces follow someone throughout geographic moves?
Yes, they have no problem with that at all. One thing that, of course I can, Dave, sorry.
Thanks.
When my vibration goes down, so when I was having a lot of stress going in my life last year, and I was overwhelmed by my encounters and some of the things that were happening to me, my vibration went down, so I became angry. I became very frustrated. I felt overwhelmed with my scenario, and I felt like I was losing control. And so as a result, my vibration went down, and the amount of negative grays I had coming after me increased. It didn't matter whether I was on Vancouver Island or northern British Columbia, or even driving out to Grand Prairie to go move a girlfriend of mine. These beings have no problem tracking us. They don't actually need tracking devices in us. The more primitive ones use tracking devices. I've asked different beings about this. If they're not really inclined, let's say spiritually, if they're not more psychically aware beings, they will use technology as a means of tracking humans. But for the beings that are more aware, the ones that are more evolved, they can track us by our energetic signature and have an awareness of where we are located at all times. And that's why some people who are like, oh, I must have alien implants in me, I have to get them out, I have to get them out. It doesn't matter if you get those implants out. The majority of beings that are interacting with you can sense where you are on this planet, and whether you're located in your body and awake, or whether you're astral projecting and outside your body. That really doesn't matter to them, because they'd be like, okay, I want to find Dave Scott. Oh, perfect. Look, Dave Scott's actually astral projecting right now over in the lower astral. Great, let's just go get him there. It doesn't really matter to them. They have no problem finding us.
JP from Wolf Spirit Radio is tuning in right now, and he's over in England, I believe. So I know he's going to want to try and, get in touch with you while you're over there. But he is asking, going back to your previous life where you said you were working with the Nazis in a past life, do you believe you were part of the Vril Society?
It does really resonate with me. I have looked briefly into Maria Ostrich, and a lot of what they do talk about does make sense to me. When I was a little kid, I hated having my hair cut. I knew it was somehow associated with my fascination with witches and energy and things of that nature, because I knew that cutting my hair off would mean I would have diminished energy or diminished power. And so that was a bit of a struggle for my family. But yes, I do feel as though I was very heavily involved when it comes to more of the secret aspect of technology and information in that sense. I do recall going to Egypt at one point in my last life, and I do recall getting moved over to the States after the war. But that's okay. I was not someone who went around collecting people. I was not someone who has gone around killing people. That is something that, even when I learned about it in school, was very confused by, very agitated by. But I do find it ironic that I have incarnated this life into a family lineage where my great-grandfather was an SS officer. So I do find that the ET intervention between where certain souls do choose to incarnate, like into which family lineages, and based upon what you do in this life and where you end up in your next life, there seems to be a strong correlation between that, and I'm trying really hard to figure out how it all comes together. And I'm hoping that with those of you who have your own experiences, that you too will share them so that we can all kind of figure out where this is going and how it works.
Do you mind if I pass JP your email address and everything so that way he can get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay, will do. JP, hit me up privately on Facebook if you're still listening. Let's get to another question from Stone. Stone is asking, with the shadow people, I had one chasing me from one dimension as a figure, like the typical Men in Black, and as I sat up, it stepped through the physical wall and appeared as a shadow being. What would that be?
Well, when you're seeing, like, let's get back to the main part, Stone. When you were in that alternative dimension and you were seeing the being appearing as a Men in Black, that would be that being's more closer to its essence of what it would normally appear as in its own world, its own day-to-day life. Now, when it transferred from that other dimension, which is not your normal dimension, but is that being's normal dimension, and came through the wall here, it was changing vibrational frequencies. So it wasn't able to bring all of its life essence, all of its appearance through, because it didn't have the strength or capability. And that is why when you saw it on this side, it appeared as a shadow person rather than as the Men in Black figure that you had seen a few moments before. I found that to be one thing that's quite interesting when we do have these really weird shadow experiences, or if you see cloaked beings walking around like invisible entities, you need to rely more on the information you can receive from your third eye, Shar. Because people should not typically even be able to see these beings as they dimension hop from one dimension into our dimension. So that means you're naturally clairvoyant. And the more you begin to trust on that information, the more you're going to start seeing. So please try to develop that more.
Let's get to another question here. This comes from Paul in the Space Out Radio chat room. He is asking, what is the significance of the Orion constellation that is so prevalent throughout so many cultures throughout history?
Well, you have to remember we had the Orion Wars, which is still so very fresh within all of our genetic memory. That's part of why many of us are here, is that war has carried over and affected us. Orion is also a huge constellation when it comes to that grouping having come to Earth and work with the reptilians under their control for determining what was happening here. Which is part of the reason why we see little gray outlines or little gray figures within the Egyptian carvings on their pyramid. Sorry, just really tired and not thinking straight when it comes to my speaking. I want for you to look at it. If you look in your Hollywood movies, they are constantly showing the Orion constellation in the stars, in the different movies, and they're reminding us on a subconscious level, hey, we're the ones in control. Hey, we're the ones that are always right here watching from the background. That is part of why Orion is a really big significant factor, is they still have control over this area, and it's carried over for a long time. That's all I know about that, Dave.
Mike is asking, and Mike lives up here where I live in the middle of the boonies. And he's actually texted me this question. So, Mike, thank you for texting. By the way, him and I are going to be going into an area where he goes quite frequently for a little bit of work, and past few nights he's been actually kind of freaked out around there, thinking there's something going on. So he wants me to go up there with him probably on Thursday. I'm kind of excited about that. But his question is, can a person call out a shadow that has been pestering them?
You can, although I don't know how. You probably have to align your vibration to that shadow's vibration. That way you're able to have easy communication between it. I imagine a telepathic bond would be easier than actually yelling out into the room for the being to come forward. You can ask your spirit guides to help bring that being forward if you wish to communicate with it. But if you are choosing to do that, I do recommend you have some form of energetic protection in place, because this being would have more capability than you if it's able to hop between one dimension and another.
All right, let's get to Claudia. You know, it was only time before she started firing up her questions, as she does every night on this show. Claudia saying, I had a dream, was shown 3 past lives, and after seeing the last past life, I was in a sitting position flying up at high speed. I was looking down, seeing city lights. It was nighttime in the dream. I looked to the right and saw an extraterrestrial. He saw me look at him and shut a window. I think he was surprised I saw him. My question is, since I was flying up, where were they taking me? Do they take you to other places when you're sleeping?
Yes, quite often. One of the most common things you'll find with multidimensionals, if you're working with them, is they may need your soul to come to a certain area if you're requiring healing, or if they're going to be taking you to school on craft, or if you're going, like Claudia, you got to remember, many of us who have incarnated, this is almost like just a very temporary job, a short-term temp job, if you will, when we choose to incarnate on Earth and do whatever it is we need to do here. But our actual soul resonance or main vibrational frequency is waiting out there with the beings that we work with. And only a small section of us comes down here to do the work. And when we go to sleep, that section can better return to the majority of our energy and complete whatever it is we're needing to do. So, one second, let me just explain this, and I hope I explain it well. Claudia, think of it this way. If you're incarnating and you're looking at, oh my goodness, Earth is in such a perilous state. I want to help the people. I want to help the planet. I want to make a difference down there. I know I have the skill set to work down there and help them accomplish something, but the human body can only handle 20% of my energy. You're only going to take 20% of your soul signature down, the 20% you need to interact and live down there. But when you go to sleep, that 20% can be picked up by the beings you work with and brought back out, where you can further relay information to them, which they can often do in the weirdest ways, might I add, where you can be speaking in front of a group of them, showing them from your own viewpoint of, this is what I seen when I was down there, this is what they're having on their internet, this is what they're projecting energetically. They can actually read all of that, but they need something within our soul essence to relay that information. Which time they can do things like say, okay, well, here's the change of plans. We now want you to focus more on this, or we want Claudia to now focus more on spreading her love energy, or whatever. Things that may not necessarily seem relevant to us, but are very relevant from their viewpoint and their understanding of what's going on. And then send you back down to your body where you can be, oh, that was the weirdest dream. I don't know where they took you, Claudia, but I want for you to feel it out. I'm sorry, but I'm not awake enough to do any channeling.
John is asking in the Space Out Radio chat room, I hate the term grays. Seems we're just transferring our infantile bigotries out to the galactic community. I just wish people would stop lumping them all into one hyper-simplistic category. Humans have encountered probably hundreds or distinct and genetically unrelated ET species over the millennia. What do you think?
I agree with you completely, John. I find it to be a form of galactic racism, and it drives me nuts. But here's the thing. How do you explain, John, to normal people that, okay, this is the generalization of the type of being which I was encountering? whether like you can describe them as being smaller or having humanoid eyes or having reptilian eyes or having hybrid eyes or having standard gray eyes. You have to really start breaking it down to show other people the distinct differences between these different types of beings, which can take a while. And for most people, they hear something as a form of gray and they instantly shut down, assuming it's bad and going to abduct them from their little farmhouse on the prairies. Well, no, in my case, that's not typically the case. A lot of them do seem to be quite nice. And please, if you can find a better term, I would love to hear it. I really don't like using the term gray just as much as I don't like saying reptilian. But for the most part, we as humans do not think to ask the beings who see them, oh, hi, by the way, which constellation are you from? That way I can have a better idea. I know several of my friends have said, why don't you ask them their names? Why don't you ask them where they're from? My mind doesn't work like that, and I'm trying to train it to get into that space, as I think many other contactees need to do as well, where we start asking them more questions rather than just going along with the ride. So thank you for bringing that up, John.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Bill Cardwell. He won't give Gloria a big mention just yet, but Bill's getting one here. He is asking, Samantha, of all the aliens you have met, have any of them shown an interest in making life here on Earth better for humans? And if so, why don't they come forward and start teaching us? I would subscribe to the Alien Learning Channel.
Okay, Bill, let me kind of pose a question back to you in turn, as well as a bit of a comment. If you are these benevolent beings, and the way in which you are going to take humanity and raise their consciousness and raise their vibration and help them to escape the oligarchy that they're currently living in and have been for the last several thousand years, would you just show up with craft in the sky and land and be like, hey, let's start an awesome YouTube channel, guys? Or let's start a PBS station or whatever. No, you wouldn't, because that's an intergalactic war right there. You need the majority of humanity's consent for these benevolent beings to really be able to step forward according to everything else that's not going to think of it this way. When countries are struggling, if, let's say we as Canada are struggling, if we do not, as a majority, or even at least a high number of us, say, we want help, can other countries please come in and help us? Other countries are less inclined to, no matter how much they want to, because that is violating their free will. So you do the backdoor method. You incarnate as humans. You work with the humans by taking them from very small children and you take them up onto school on craft and you get them used to working with you and you help them to remember their soul origin. Things of that nature is going around it rather than taking the head-on approach, which would cause an intergalactic war and would bring it further into that oligarchy state, that Orwellian state that we're all wanting to avoid. That is what they're doing. I know you'd love to subscribe to an Alien Learning Channel. So why don't you just project your energy upwards, raise your vibration, be like, hey guys, I would love to work with you. Can you please start having interactions with me, benevolent beings? I'd really like to help raise humanity's awareness. They will come to you. But you do have to raise your vibration because many of them are operating on a higher vibration, have a hard time bringing their vibration down low enough to help them or to interact with us. Pardon me.
Bill is dying for contact. Well, not dying. I'm exaggerating there. He looks up at the stars literally on a nightly basis, and he has just not seen anything that has caught his eye that looks anything like a UFO. So for people like Bill, who are just wanting the contact, albeit on a benevolent level, how would you go around, or how would you teach Bill, much like you taught me, how would you teach them to try and get that contact, put that energy out there saying, hey, I want a benevolent being or a benevolent ship to fly over my house, or give me the strobing, or something along those lines?
The quickest ways that you can really do it, Bill, are to detoxify a lot of the toxins out of your body, because you probably have a very heavily calcified pineal gland, which can make it so that if you are having multidimensional extraterrestrial paranormal activity around you, some naturally within your space, if your pineal gland is calcified, you're not going to be able to perceive that energy as easily, and you'll have a harder time astral projecting as well. As well, I hate to say it, but meditating is one of the easiest ways in which you can initiate contact, because even that meditating for 5 minutes a day while you're in the shower shampooing your hair, just clearing your mind, focusing on that love vibration, sending a beam of energy or love straight up from your heart chakra out into space, out towards whatever constellation you feel a very strong pull towards, because chances are, Bill Cardwell, you feel a very strong pull towards one particular constellation, one group of stars that you always look up at the night sky and go, wow, I would love to see you guys. For me, whenever I used to look up in the night sky, it was always the Pleiades. I didn't know it was the Pleiades for a long time. I always thought it was like the really tiny little dipper, but that's okay. What you want to do is you want to make it so that you're operating on more of a psychic level, because then they will start interacting with you on more of an astral projection level and bring it into more conscious contact as they deem you more comfortable. The likelihood of you waking up and just seeing an Arcturian just sitting on your bed, for a lot of people, that is enough to send them into a heart attack. And I'm sure you guys remember how Dave has mentioned how the encounter he and I shared, how those beings were very concerned about Dave's heart giving out. Well, they think the same about a lot of other people, because the last thing they want is for them to show up on your bed and for you to have a heart attack and them to have to take you on craft and try to revive you and try to keep your soul in your body rather than your soul leaving, only to have you freaked out more and misinterpret the communication that they were hoping to share with you. Sorry if you're going off on a tangent, but roughly they've explained psychic abilities are the key for most people, because everyone is psychic. It's just a matter of naturally developing them and trusting your own intuition.
Let's continue on with the questions here. Shar is asking, Samantha, have the good extraterrestrials ever said how to stop the bad ones?
Typically what they've said to me is I need to raise my vibration. When I have a lot of really strong MyLab encounters, or I'm having a lot of negative encounters, they'll say, you need to put away extraterrestrial stuff for a while. We want you to go back to focusing on psychic abilities and raising your vibration. So they'll normally make it so that I'm like craving a lot of fruit juice. So when you take like a juice, you're not going to the store and buy a can of apple juice. I mean, like smoothies, soups, things of more of a higher vibration. Plants have a lighter vibration than that of heavy foods like potatoes and meat and things of that nature. So if they try to get you to de-stress, because stress lowers our vibration, fatigue lowers our vibration, things like that. They've always explained it as a vibrational, what your vibration is emitting will determine what it is that's coming into you. And so over the last year, where I've had a lot of reptilian stuff going, a lot of, as John hates this term, gray contact going on, it is because my vibration had decreased compared to what it was in 2014 when it was higher. So it is a vibrational frequency war from what they've explained to me. They said there's nothing they can do for you, such as giving you a shot or removing an implant to make it so that the other beings don't find you. They said it's all about vibration. The best way I can really explain how they explained it to me was I had this really interesting encounter, and it was an astral projection one, and I was shown a different kind of being. There was almost like a group of beings, and they were a vibrational seeking group, and they weren't from this planet, and they seemed to be collecting people because these people were all emitting a fear vibration. As the people emitted fear and stress and these really lower vibratory rates, these beings were able to identify them. No, not just that. They were able to perceive them, identify them, and then they collected them and devoured them. And it did not matter if it was one person by themselves or there was 100 people. They were all collected and they were eaten all the same, which these beings are explaining to me, they're eating your energy. You have to make sure you're not operating at that rate. And they had explained to me that if I did not emit fear, then I was there for just a bystander to make the people losing their lives. And it does make you feel helpless to see these people emitting this vibration and being afraid. And all they said to me was, you need to make sure that you're not at that vibratory state and that you teach other people not to operate at that state, because that is how they can stay safe and that is how they will not be targeted. That is what they explained to me.
Continuing on with the questions here, because you're just that popular, Samantha Mowat. Christoph is asking, I'm wondering if the guest, you, Samantha, has ever experienced being in large space stations or ships with a large artificial atmosphere, basically almost like an artificial world.
Yes, quite a few times. And sometimes when I find myself on them, I get very annoyed if I do not remember being taken from my body out into space. Sometimes if I find myself just on a medical examination table or where I'm finding myself in a more vulnerable state, then I hate to say it, but I can be quite petulant at that time because I do feel like it's a violation of my privacy sometimes. One thing I've noticed about a lot of the artificial worlds or about the larger space craft that do seem to have plants and animals and things of that nature is it always seems to have a very similar energy. I do not see the negative beings typically operating with these larger craft. Typically, the nice beings will end up having plants because they like the soothing vibration. They will have a lot of crystalline energy moving throughout the craft. Many of them do seem to have animals. But the one thing that I've really noticed about it is it seems like it's very soft lighting, typically more in cream colors, typically in more of a softer palette, but it's always very clean, not sterile, but as in everything has its place and everything in its place. They don't seem to have unnecessary clutter, and I like that because I feel like we're too cluttered down here. 1 second. My guides are just poking me. Okay. What I've noticed typically is if I find myself on a large craft, I can typically now assume that it's a benevolent group. But if I find myself on a smaller craft, and if it's typically darker, then I'm fairly safe to assume that it is not a group that has my best interest at heart, or if it is overly bright as well.
Let's move on. We have a question from Daryl. She is asking, are there any artificial beings that you have become or had contact with, Samantha?
I've had one form of gray that was questionable to me as to whether she was an organic life or whether she was something that was more cloned. And that would be the one that I encountered when I ended up seeing a whole bunch of other women, the one that met me at the little cabin and took me out towards the craft. She didn't have that strong, energetic signature that many of the other ETs do. Although, that said, it is also possible that she didn't have the same energetic range that we do, and that could be why I didn't see her emitting the same degree of emotions that most ETs do. Offhand, I cannot think of any one particular being that would be, I would consider automatically non-organic life or cloned life or, let's say, AI intelligence. No.
Moving on, Ron is asking, Samantha, how do you protect yourself from negative entities while astral projecting? How do you protect yourself from the negative?
So what I typically do is when I first wake up in the morning or while I'm brushing my teeth, before I leave the house, somewhere in there, and right before I go to bed, it's a very strong habit for my family to go, okay, we put white light around us. It's one of the first things you do in the day. And then you put up, we typically do golden bubbles or golden Merkabahs or something along those lines, because the white energetic vibration is the highest vibration outside of gold that you can interact with and work with on our dimensional frequency. There is a whole range of colors that you will perceive when you go into the astral realms that are brighter and more vibrant and completely different than the colors here. But we are not seemingly able to access them when we are awake and when we are inhabiting our bodies. So I've noticed that gold and white seem to be the highest colors, so we wrap those around our bodies, around our souls. And typically I find that when you really work strongly with white light and gold light, you will be flighty. Dave, you've seen me some days where I forget to ground myself, like when John Kelly came out to your house.
Yes.
It's almost like you're on an energy drunk or an energy high. And that's when you have to stop and do grounding. So give yourself a grounding cord. Picture something going from either the base of your feet or your root chakra straight down to the center of the earth. Otherwise, that is too much energy for you to really hold in and maintain clear, cognizant thought. if you're walking around and you don't have energetic protection on, you can easily have your energy vampired. But if you do work with things like, if you read a lot of psychic energy protection books, and I've read probably a good few dozen of them at this point, they'll say, okay, well, put on a purple cloak, or go ahead and wrap yourself in purple light or white light, and that's fine. You have to choose what works best for you. But for me, white light and gold light work better, because if you put that around your physical body and your soul, and you really make that intention of it's going around my soul and my body, and it doesn't matter if my soul's my body or not, they're both protected, then when you astral project, that protection is going to maintain being around you. You're not going to have that same energetic disturbance than if you just place that energy protection around your body and your home. So that's what I know about it.
Let's get to Mario's question. He is asking, Samantha, there's a new HBO show called Westworld, and it's about robots coexisting with humans in a Western world. Do you believe such automatons do actually exist?
Yes, I think it's fully possible for them to do them. As to whether we have them here on this planet is another matter. But from what I've typically noticed is if Hollywood is showing it to you in the media or through movies, then they've already got it. I think we also have something very similar going on with all of us quite naturally in our day-to-day lives, except rather than waking up and it being the same day over and over, because I've actually seen one episode of that show, I feel as though it's waking up in each of our incarnations, where it can be this. Do you remember that one gentleman, I shouldn't say gentleman, he's quite a thug, who went towards that blonde girl when she returned to her family home and had discovered that her family had now been killed, her dad and her mom, and now he grabbed her by the barn and was taking her to go rape her and kill her? I feel as though where that predatory energy was tracking her, coming back to that world time and time again, and then she saw him the next day. I feel as though some beings are actually doing that to us as humans over many incarnations. And to me, that's them poking us, saying, hey, look, we're revealing information to you and you don't even know it, and making a joke at humanity at large. So, yes, I do think robots to that degree are possible. And I do think they're here.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from John. And he is saying, getting back to what you were mentioning about raising your vibrations, is it just equal to good food and positive meditation practices?
No. There are lots of different things you can do to raise your vibration. What I find is if I'm on YouTube for too many hours in a day, whether it's working on there, listening to other people's videos, so you have to be very careful about what it is you're watching on TV, what it is you're listening to on YouTube, what music you're listening to. Those all affect the vibration that you're emitting. So think of it this way, John. Your vibration let's say in the morning when you first wake up is authentically John. It is yours. But when you go onto YouTube and you listen to a video, your vibration starts to fluctuate to being partly almost like at a harmonious state with whatever it is you're listening to. So if you go into the car and you're listening to Nicki Minaj, you're going to go into that discordant vibratory rate. If you're listening to classical music, do you ever notice after listening to classical music on a drive for 10 minutes, you feel calmer and you're more at ease? That's because your vibration is now connecting in towards that vibration. It's really matching it. So if you're really aware of what it is you're watching, listening to, and eating, that's going to affect you immensely. I know, Dave, you've told me in the past that, hey, look, I don't have 15 minutes, Sam, to sit down and meditate. And I get that. So because you don't have that time, be aware of what you're listening to. And Dave, that's why I gave you those access consciousness CDs to help bring you back towards having control over your own vibration. Food does help. It helps immensely. And you can love meat. Some beings, it is actually better for some multidimensional beings that are incarnated to eat meat because that is what their souls eat on their own home world. So it only makes sense they eat it here. But if you're going to choose to eat meat or have alcohol, get it from places or from producers where it has a happy vibration, something that feels good. When you pick up a head of lettuce in the store, or you pick up chocolate, or you pick up whatever. Feel it. Do my hands hurt when I hold this food? Because if I feel like it's heavy or I'm getting a no feeling, then that's a vibration that your body's saying, you know, I'm really not resonating with this. I don't want this coming into me. Alternatively, look at the people that you're surrounding yourself with, because your vibration will always match the people that is around you. And it's interesting, Dave, one of the first times I ever met you, you said, you know, I'm a strong believer that the 5 people that you spend the most time with are thank you, guys, a reflection of what it is you're going to accomplish or what it is you're going to do. And I thought that was interesting because you weren't aware of it at the time, but you're talking about how the energetic resonance of you is directly affected by the people you hang out with. So if you're hanging out with people who are really depressed or not really wanting to change their life and are really stagnant, well, your energy is going to reflect something similar. And so you have the choice to try to raise those other people up or to, well, find other friends. It's up to you. There are a lot of ways to raise your vibration. If you want to raise your home's vibration, get plants. Plants will raise your home vibration very, very quickly, as do crystals, as do organite, as do those Himalayan salt lamps. They all change the way the energy and the vibration is being emitted in your room, especially energetic pollution like what we have off of our smartphones or off of our TVs. In our home, we have a lot of organite near our computers, near our TVs, near our smart meter, which is unfortunately right near my bedroom. So we have things like that to counteract the energetic pollution, the energetic things that would drag your vibration down. And we have our own countermeasures. So there are things you can do. I hope I answered your question.
And we'll get to another one, the follow-up from Stone on this. She says, Samantha, with vibrations and the music that's out there designed to feed off us, have you been able to tap into that and change the negative into positive energy for yourself?
No, I haven't really thought too much of it. As I'm sure you're well aware, I've got little people, and I do find it quite difficult to make time for things of that nature. So unfortunately, my kids do enjoy listening to Nicki Minaj. So it's like, okay, well, if we're going to listen to that, put up your white bubble, white light, golden bubble, pick your grounding cord, and then sure, yeah, we'll listen to it. But if we don't do stuff like that, there is discord and fighting, and between the 10-minute drive between leaving home and getting to school, people are going to be arguing and yelling at one another. So even being aware of how these musics affect you, the only real countermeasures are having some form of energetic protection in place. It's hard to take something that has a fused and a fixed vibration, like a CD that has, like, whether it's, well, look at a lot of music out there right now. If you look at anything from Britney Spears, Nicki Minaj, whatever, they're all having that same heavy, very strong sex vibration. And it's hard to change that vibration in a fixed thing like a CD when it's not in front of you. But if you're going to a live concert, you can manipulate that energy. You can change that around because it's being performed in front of you. You can affect the music coming out of the artist, coming out of the instruments that the people are playing. That is how you can change it in that sense. But changing it technologically, I don't find it to be as easy.
We got another question here in regards to vibrations. This one comes from Mike. How does one raise their vibrations then if they've never done it before?
Oh, well, there's a few different things you can do, Mike. I'd like for you to try an experiment tomorrow. When you wake up, feel the way your body feels before you eat. Just kind of take a moment, stand there in front of your coffee machine if you want, and just feel, okay, how does my body feel? Do I feel like it's sluggish? Does it feel like it's light? Does it feel like it's airy? Just kind of feel that. And then as you eat, like let's say you grab your breakfast and your coffee and you go sit at the kitchen table, feel like eat one thing at a time. Have your coffee and feel how your body reacts to the energy of the coffee when it's in your mouth, and going down your throat, because you're feeling the vibration that's coming into your body. The more you become like just consciously aware of how the different vibrations are affecting you, the more you'll be able to determine whether something is a high vibration and works with you, well, whether it's high for you or not high for you. So if you want to just raise your vibration in a simple way, if you drink any water, hold the water for a moment in your hand and just look at it and say, I love you, thank you, just expressing that gratitude into the water, even before you put it in your coffee pot or before you put it in your water bottle. It will change the way that the molecules in your body are reacting, and that will raise your vibration. It takes 2 seconds. Or you could put crystals in your water. We have stuff like rose quartz or amethyst or citrine, typically in our different jugs of water at home, be it for ourselves or for our plants or for the dog even. And that does raise your vibration quite quickly. Another thing that you can do is, if you want to raise your vibration, honestly, cutting things like alcohol down, if not out, will raise your vibration a lot. And that's one thing I find different for myself is, in the last year, I did start drinking wine again because I was going through a period of extreme stress. And so having that glass of wine with my husband after my kids went to bed made me feel more relaxed, but it lowered my vibration so that a lot of beings, like the light beings, I haven't seen them since I started drinking wine again. I haven't seen Pleiadians as often since I've started doing that. So I know my guides have been nudging me over the last 6 months. Okay, can you just cut this out again? We want you to get back to work. So there are a lot of things you can do that can affect your vibration in a positive way or a negative way that seem very small and very trivial to us, but actually have a huge impact.
And here I thought you were just a lush when it came to the alcohol.
Oh, I know. So much fun.
I know. You are a rebel. Well, Mike's already saying, I got to meet this lady next time she's over at your house, Dave. And I'm like, yep, definitely. Mike is just learning all of this, and he's almost starting that same crash course that I had. It's kind of fun.
Wow, that was intense.
Yeah, it's kind of not, I don't think it's as extreme. He's starting very paranormal right now. And, I think it's something with him where he is, and this, for the people who are wondering who Mike is, when we just started up the SOR Sightlines report, Mike Schmidt is who we're talking about. He'll be the one who does all the investigations out there. So if you want something looked at, Mike will be the guy who's looking into it for you. And Mike is just somebody who has had experiences, kept them bundled up his entire life, and now all of a sudden, guess what? He meets old Davy in the middle of nowhere. Literally, I think we were both peeing on either side of a tree or something, and that's how it happened. I don't really recall. But on the flip side, he is like starting to open up now, and his questions it kind of makes me chuckle because it reminds me so much of what I went through just a couple of years ago when I started having all of these different types of experiences. So I'm glad to be able to help him out because I had good people to help me out. So we'll have to introduce you next time you are this way.
Perfect. Let's do it. I look forward to it, Mike.
We got time for maybe one question, maybe two. We'll get to Char's question here. She is asking, Samantha, where does God and the angels fit in with all of this extraterrestrial talk?
Well, that really depends on what group you talk to as to what response you'll get. Now, one thing I've found is, Char, before I was so heavily focused on extraterrestrials and multidimensionals, I am a very strong believer that our spirit guides are beings that we connect with. And for a long time, I was told that our spirit guides can only be angels, and I did believe that. I thought, okay, well, I've got my little ETs in this category, I've got my spirit guides in this category, and I've got my angels in this one, and that's good. I didn't think they could interconnect. But from what I've learned in my experiences, when I was living in Nanaimo in, I think, 2013, 14, I can't remember offhand, I noticed that there was a lot of orb activity and that there was a lot of aura outlines moving around my home. So I could always sense they were my spirit guides and angels. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm really tired of seeing you as energetic outlines. I'm tired of seeing the beautiful auras. I want to see what you really look like. And when I had done that and had made that decision, that's when I started seeing a lot more multidimensional beings coming forward rather than seeing the different beings presenting themselves as slightly angelic. Now, at first I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just me who's interacting this heavily with ETs. But then I started to notice in my readings or when I'd be talking to other people or my friends, and they'd ask me, hey, do you mind asking my guides this? Or can you ask my guides about this guy or about this problem or whatever? And I'd start to have a lot of these multidimensional beings coming forward rather than the conventional angelic appearance that you would typically expect. Well, most psychics, when you talk to them, they'll be like, oh yes, you'll see angels, and you'll see angels wearing robes and long hair and things of that nature. Well, I've never seen one being, not one, with beautiful flowing hair and beautiful wings, the nice Roman-style robe. I'm sorry, but I've never seen that. It could be that those people interact with those beings, and I don't, but I kind of doubt it. I've noticed that many of the multidimensional beings, and I'll get to God in a minute, I promise, seem to choose a appearance that we are comfortable with having them interact with us with. So for you, let's say you're a strong believer in angels in a traditional sense, as Doreen Virtue depicts them. Well, if you're feeling ill or going through a troublesome time, then these beings will present themselves to you in that fashion. But let's say you are someone who's Muslim, or you are Jewish, or you are pagan, then depending upon your fixed belief system, you will perceive these beings, these multidimensionals or angelic beings, in whatever faith system in which you are currently residing or focused on. So that's why you'll hear stories of Catholic nuns seeing Jesus or Mary, or you'll hear about Islamic people seeing the Prophet Muhammad, things of that nature. But you will not often hear of a Catholic nun seeing Krishna, because these beings will look at your mind, they'll scan your mind, see what you're comfortable working with, and they'll show you something accordingly. Now, in regards to God, many of these beings do mention a form of creator, some form of life essence that is connecting us all, that is expressing itself in many different forms, be it showing itself as greys, reptilians, humans, Pleiadians, whatever. And they all seem to reflect back to it is a creative force. Half of them seem to say it's masculine, half of them seem to say it's feminine. I think it all depends on the vibration you're emitting as to how you're going to be perceiving it at any given time. The only commonality that I've really heard about it is they don't seem... I'll get back.
Let's finish that answer right after this break, Samantha. Samantha Mowat is our guest. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of every month, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFOcop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com. for mind, body, and spirit. And expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back
back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio on Studio B, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password. It is hybridization if you are an SOR space traveler. And if you are, you know what to do with that password. Exactly. Hybridization is your password for tonight. Bill Cardwell sets it each and every night for you SOR space travelers. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, we can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows, like this one, right afterwards, and others on iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can click on the SOR Space Travelers Club, sign up for just a total of $5 a month. With that, you get access to private group interviews, access to special sections on our website, and so much more. You can read up on the SOR Spacewire, check out our latest blogs, listen to our music band Bumblefoot, and if you've had an experience you need an answer to, fill out the SOR Sightlines report. It's pretty awesome. We've set it up for you to get one-on-one consultation with our lead investigator, Mike Schmidt. All your information is 100% confidential. Tonight, we bring in Samantha Mowat for the final time tonight. Samantha does the ET Experience here on Spaced Out Radio, the second Tuesday of every month. Samantha, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. I'm really happy to be here.
Now, right before the break, you were breaking down on Shar's question regarding what is God's role when it comes to extraterrestrials, and do they believe in them? And we got cut off by the break, so if you could continue that, I would appreciate that.
Not a problem. So what I've noticed is the perception of God in which most of us seem to have is actually inaccurate. We can all sense within us that there is something much bigger beyond ourselves. And many of the ET beings feel as though there is a strong creative force that is expressing itself in many different ways. But from what they've explained to me, they do not feel as though our perception where it's a man who lives in the clouds who's bad with money is accurate. Many of the ways in which they say we can actually connect to God is through connecting into nature, connecting to each other, really getting back into that heart place, rather than having to go to a specific building for certain times with a bunch of rules that work for one person and are great for that person, but don't necessarily apply to the other. One thing that kind of, I grew up Catholic, and after my strong experience at 16, everything that I had believed up until that point, even with the experiences I had up until that point, my beliefs around God and everything like that were shattered. Because they showed me, hey, look, that it's way different than what you're expecting. It's way different than how you're believing it to be true. And they started making me go to nature. Well, nature became my church. Walking outside, meditating, and connecting to that universal life essence is how they've explained to me is the best way to connect to God, rather than feeling the need to pray inside a church. That's what they've explained to me, at least.
Let's get to Gail's question. Gail has been asking, she says, I think I missed it, but Samantha, would you please define what multidimensional beings are and what multidimensional means?
Oh yeah, not a problem. So what I'd like for you to think of the world like this. The world is operating on, let's say the world has a book on top of it, and let's say it's a huge book, 1,000-page chapter book. And each page represents a dimension. And within that dimension, let's say, is where we live. So Earth in its current phase, where everything like World War II has happened, and we're living here with our iPhones and our tablets and everything else. So let's say on another dimension, World War II didn't happen. And as a result, things are completely different. They may still have iPhones and tablets and everything else, but it would be a different world because one event not happening can change things. Now, I need to explain something about dimensions. You can have multiple dimensions occupying one physical location, And each dimension is operating at a different vibratory rate. So think of it this way. We're emitting energy at all times. And if you feel the way your body feels right now, let's say you're at your tired state that you're at right now, you've kind of got like a slow, pretty calm vibration. Well, if you raise your vibration up a bit, let's say tomorrow you decide, I'm not going to do any animal products, I'm not going to have any alcohol, your vibration is going to skyrocket up a few notches. And as a result, within about a month, your clairvoyance is going to start kicking in. You're going to start seeing outlines around people, outlines around plants, furniture, things of that nature. And what I need to explain around multidimensional is many of the beings that people are mistaking for extraterrestrial beings are actually beings that are living on a different dimension and either occupying the same space that we have here on Earth or occupying different planets or different areas on different dimensions rather than being on our dimension and from, let's say, the Pleiades or the Orion system or the Draco system. They are just coming from another dimensional place. I hope that makes sense.
I think it totally does. Let's get to another question from Claudia here. Claudia is asking, Samantha, do you think each planet radiates its own energy and that is where each ET is born? The planet that matches their energy. If so, if this is true, seems many are attracted to Earth's energy. Why do you think they love Earth so much?
In my point of awareness and from what I've come to learn, we are all typically born, doesn't matter what your soul is, human, Pleiadian, whatever. We are born in some form of God consciousness, and that energetic spark that is us and our soul family tends to find a planet in our early stages that resonates with us, something that feels compatible. And that is where we have our first few incarnations. And as our vibration changes and grows, we begin to seek out different planets and different dimensions that resonate with us. Part of the reason why many ETs are very fascinated by Earth, in particular at this time, is you have to look at what's happening in our solar system and within the solar systems near us. We are under a massive reptilian control from the Draco star system. And the reason why many ETs are intrigued by our planet is what's happening on Earth and the vibration we're emitting, which is incredibly chaotic. As a whole, it is not a healthy vibration. It is a very stressed and fearful vibration. That is affecting the nearby solar systems and that call of help, because most of the people on Earth are calling out, praying every day to whatever God or creator they believe in, asking for help for their families or their deceased, or for their loved ones who are sick, or for their children who are hungry, or because they know someone who's being abused, things like that. That energy, that praying, that thinking is actually being sent out in waves coming out of our planet. And the other energy, like the other planets, the other beings are able to sense this energetic vibration. And it is affecting them to a degree, but it's also making things discordant on their world. So when World War II happened and we had nuclear technology and we ended up dropping those horrific bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there were physical ramifications from those vibrations. They did affect a few gray worlds. And they did lose populace over them. And as a result, we are not going to be able to drop nuclear bombs again. None of the ETs that are benevolent are going to allow it. They will interject whenever we do try to start anything along those lines again. That, for them, is a stepping point where they feel they have to interject and they have to step forward. Oh, hello. Sorry.
What did you say hello to? I always like when that happens.
Sorry, I just heard this really pretty trilling noise. But it's okay, just some being off to my left, not a big deal. But
well, it
anyway,
is to our audience. We don't get those experiences.
Yet. Always include the yet.
Yet.
But getting back to it, and the fact that you ask, why do they all feel Earth is so special? Well, Earth is a collection of so many different types of flora and fauna and energies, and it is, in a sense, a form of living library. It is a place where all these worlds did drop off their information, samples from their own places, their own star systems, where it's like, hey, look, you can go to South America and see what it's like in this star system, or you can come up to the Arctic and see what's like on snowy worlds and see what kind of life forms are found there. The diversity of life on this planet does not make sense compared to all the other planets out there as a naturally occurring thing. I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense when you start to look at how life is inhabited on other worlds. We have the most diverse forms of plant life and animal life and ecosystems that typically would not be found on any planetary body. It's incredible, and that is something worth treasuring and protecting, and that is why they're so heavily invested on Earth, and why Earth has restarted several times now. But that's a whole nother story.
That's a big story at that. Very big story.
I agree. But that's okay.
Love in the Space Out Radio chat room is asking, what sort of vibration is imposed on us at government-mandated schools, then?
Quite a bit. One thing that you can actually look at almost all government schools, if your child is going through the standard run-of-the-mill public school system, your child is being indoctrinated into a standard thinking mindset. So your child is roughly having the creativity taught out of them for 6 to 8 hours a day, every day. Now, if you look at alternative schools, and I'm sorry, but I'm a huge believer in unschooling, homeschooling, Montessori's, Waldorf schools, things that still allow for children to really express themselves and learn at their own rate and in a creative environment, you will find that those children still have a higher connection to their spirit guides, their intuition, and their creativity. And as a result, will be able to manifest and have control over their health. One thing that I do need to say about government mandated is when you see government mandatory vaccines, that's when you know something's happening that we need to be a little more cautious of. And the reason being is the vaccines, sorry to bring these up, and I know it's a huge controversial one for people, but I've noticed a big difference between the vibration that one of my children emits versus the other ever since vaccines is it's almost like they disconnect you from your higher self and they make it harder for you to connect in. I hope that makes sense. Sorry I'm saying that a lot tonight. I'm jet lagged.
That's okay. I'm still surprised that you said yes, you would do this show at this point. I am still very happy about that. JP has a quick comment for you, and I've posted his Skype contacts in your Skype list here.
Thank you.
But he is saying, where are you visiting in Scotland? Because he lives in Findhorn in the north.
Oh, I'm in the Orkney Islands right now. So he might know where that is. I was in northern Scotland, so Edinburgh. Then went to Inverness, and then going back to Edinburgh before we go home. But I'm in Orkney for the next 12 days. A little ways outside of Kirkwall.
Well, there you go. I'm sure he's pretty familiar with that area. Let's get to another question. Bob is asking, Samantha, what do you think about smudging?
I love smudging. I've done smudging since I was a teenager, and for me, smudging works. I know some people find that smudging doesn't resonate with them, and I do feel as though if you pay attention to this, okay, if you're a smudger and you're someone who likes to use stuff, whether it's sage or nag champa or whatever it is you choose to smudge with, I find that if you pay attention to the smoke patterns coming off of the, like, let's say you're smudging stick, so whatever it is you're, like when you're smudging your house, if you look at the energetic patterns coming out of the smoke, if it looks like it's really light and going straight up right away, you'll notice that tends to be an area that has lighter energy, an area that's a bit cooler. But if you're noticing that the pattern's really thick and that it seems to be burning really slowly and it's almost like it's really slow smoke coming out, you know that's an area that tends to be a denser energy. And I've noticed even when we're in Hawaii, it was like 30-something degrees, so you can't say it's a temperature difference thing completely. I was walking around our little condo, and I noticed that, hey, look, this area feels really heavy, and I got my nag champa, and I smudged that area, and it felt better smudging seems to really change the energetic vibration to a bit of a higher vibratory rate. So that's my thoughts on it.
Getting back to the God question, Ron
Yes.
is asking, what beings, or could it have been beings that were representing God to mankind?
Of course, if that's how you get the primitive life forms to start understanding what it is you're trying to teach them, then yes, it does make sense to partially represent yourself in that manner. So I agree.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I want to get back to this topic that I find truly exhilarating, and that is about the nuclear conflicts. You had mentioned earlier that the ETs will not allow any future type of nuclear war here. How do you know that? Because I've heard that before as well.
One thing that they've shown me time and time again is right after I have a lot of strong MyLab experiences, I tend to have almost like a wave of benevolent ones after, where they reassured me over and over, in particular Danny's group, that we're not going to allow for them to activate anything. We're not going to allow for them to cause that degree of damage again. We underestimated them last time. And so when I start hearing them say things like that, where we've underestimated them in the past, that means that they weren't expecting for that event to have taken place. So that's more what I feel around it, and more of what they've told me about it.
So sorry to cut you off there. Does that mean, in your opinion then, Samantha, that maybe, just maybe, that they would get pissed off enough, stop this nuclear war, and then maybe say, we've had enough of you humans, it's time for us to take care of you? But in a negative consensus.
They could have done that to us already at several points. It's not like our governments haven't tried time and time again to get that to start again. Like, think about it. Look at how often we've had this technology for the last, 70 years? And yet we haven't seemed to have really dropped any of those bombs really since, at least not on populated centers or anywhere that could strongly affect humanity or nature. They've stopped them from being able to turn on those bombs. They've got the technology to make it so that our technology malfunctions. The reptilians that are controlling us, their technology malfunctions because they don't realize, well, actually, no, that's not true. Humanity doesn't realize that a lot of the beings we're interacting with are tens of thousands to many, many millions and whatnot, years older as civilizations, both technologically, spiritually, than we are. And they look at what's happening here, and for them, it's no different than you walking around after baby SOR and be like, hey, buddy, I'm going to take this fork away from you because I'm worried you're going to hurt yourself. It's that simple to them as it is that simple to you. So they are protecting us, and they're not likely to annihilate us. They keep restarting us whenever we screw up too badly. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Then I shall not. Shar has a comment here, and she is saying, Samantha, you are calling humans primitive life beings, and they, being the aliens, eat us. And they want to study our emotions because they have none?
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying to an extent. I should probably clarify that way we're clear. Some forms of these beings, some of the multidimensionals, do ingest our physical bodies because they do eat meat, and to them we are just another form of meat. Not all of them, a very small amount of them, in fact. Some do live in a more parasitic, energetic world. Perhaps you've heard of this. Shar, have you ever heard of those yogis in India or in Tibet who literally go years without eating a single morsel of food or without drinking a drop of water, but they live off the prana or life force that is around them? They've documented quite a few cases from everywhere from the Vatican was watching 2 women who didn't eat anything for over 40 years. I know that there's a bunch of Tibetan yogis that have done it, same with men throughout India, a few women as well. Those people are connecting to the vibration of source, or the vibration that is all around us, and living off of that. Well, that's operating on a higher vibration and eating that vibration, or using that vibration as your life essence or food as substance. Now, some of these beings are more parasitic in nature, where they're not able to feed off of those higher vibration emotions. They feed off of things like the energy emitted when we're having sex, or when we're fighting, or when we're drunk, or when we're high, or when we're afraid, or things of that nature. So for them, that is their food source. Not all of these beings are like that. Some beings are like you and I, where they can eat salad or they can eat meat, and they take things, well, I don't eat meat, but they can eat things that are of more of a loving vibration and honor their food, which is why you'll hear of many indigenous cultures around the world, when they do choose to eat animals or kill them, they will go, yes, they will kill the animal, but they will also thank it for its life essence and for its contribution to its society. Not all of the beings eat meat. Not all of them eat us. Typically, I've found that it's more reptilians, that some reptilians, not all reptilians, who will eat humans. But they will also eat other things as well. They are not above eating cows or horses or bison. I haven't really heard of them eating cats or dogs, but I have heard of them attacking farm animals. Pardon me 1 second, collect my thought. Thank you. Beings that are more likely to be parasitic in nature are the more reptilians that are more evolved than the ones that are reliant purely on flesh, as are some of the varieties of gray, some of the varieties of mantis, where they can ingest our emotions and feed off that vibration. But those ones are more evolved than the ones that eat only physical substance. Just as the people who rely on that life essence, that prana force or God force, as their substance, are more evolved than us who rely on food and water for our, well, energy.
Char's rebuttal is they are not superior to us.
I didn't say they were superior. I said they were more evolved. You are more evolved at working on a computer and sewing and farming, pardon me for coughing, than, let's say, a house cat or a dog, or even the cow in the field, but you are not superior to those animals. Your perception may make you think you are, but you are not. That is, I'm sorry, but my rebuttal back. One life is not more important than the other. It's just having a different experience.
Let's get to Gloria's question here. She is asking, then what happened with the nuclear accident in Japan and the horrific mess that may wipe out life on Earth? What would the ETs be doing with that?
Yeah, but here's the thing. They're not... You mean the Fukushima one, or are you talking about the tsunami?
Well, Fukushima was brought on by the tsunami, right?
Thank you. Sorry, mixing up names in my head. You got to remember, that's completely different again. They're not going to allow for all life on Earth to be taken out. They're really not. And James, could you do me a favor? And for that gentleman who's always seeing owls, can you please tell him I'm seeing 2 owls right now? Sorry, it's just staring at me.
That is, yes, I'll get that message to Joe. I think Joe is listening in. So, Joe, the owls are with Samantha right now.
But sorry, getting back to your Fukushima incident, you've got to remember that's not going to affect all of humanity. It's not. We're not all going to become heavily radiated, and we're not all going to end up getting sick from it, nor is all of our life. They do have technology for cleaning that up. And that is part of why they're desperately trying to help us raise our vibration and to connect with them so they can intervene. But if things reach a point where they deem it necessary for critical intervention, they will intervene regardless. And they do to an extent. It's just you don't hear about it on the media. At least not over here in the Western world. You'll hear about it in other countries like Brazil and Mexico and China, India, places where it's like, crash, we're seeing this or at this location at this time. We're seen by this many people. On their media, they're recognizing it. They're aware of it. But for us, it's not as commonly talked about or as acknowledged. So, sorry. Please don't go to that fear vibration. I really don't want people going towards fear.
Yeah, I'm steering this right away from that right now because I don't want to go down that angle either. I don't think it's very necessary on this, considering we're supposed to be talking about paranormal and the connection to the alien world. At least that's kind of what I would like to talk about. But hey, I'm not the one steering this boat at times, but right now I'm going to take the ship back under my control. Let's just do it that way. Tell us about a haunted story that you had, whether it is either extraterrestrial or paranormal, that just kind of tripped you out a little bit.
Okay, let me think for a second. Haunted story. Ooh, okay. I remember this one really weird encounter that I had where I couldn't figure out when it was happening whether I was astral projecting or whether it was my physical body. And it was a bit of an odd one because I was with my husband and he and I were sitting on our couch. And as we were sitting on our couch, I noticed those really beautiful winged back chairs that I have. It tilted backwards. And then all of a sudden, it landed flat on its feet again. And I remember we both looked at the chair. And then I remember I went and I sat in the chair because I got really annoyed. And then the chair leaned further back and it went further, like went back to its flat feet again. I thought, okay, well, that's not right. Stop destroying my chair. I don't know what being this is because I remember seeing an invisible outline and getting really, really mad at it, going, you're going to either damage my chairs or you're going to damage the floor. Stop it. And so I remember saying something along the lines of, okay, stop it, enough of that, whatever. And this being, I remember, it felt very displeased with me and it was really mad. And it was trying to send some sort of message to me, but I was obviously disregarding it and made it feel like it was not being relevant. Pardon me for a second. And I remember the next thing that happened was, one second, what was it? I don't know. I remember looking at going, I'm not seeing a clear outline of the being. I'm not seeing a strong energetic signature. I remember thinking, okay, well, you're really well cloaked. This is kind of odd. And then I remember this being, it stopped my chair when I was sitting on it. Oh, it was an astral projection encounter. Thank you, gods. And it pulled me sitting on the chair to the very top of my stairs that I had in, well, Mission, Dave. You saw those stairs. They're really steep. And I remember it did that, and it was trying to say something to me, but I couldn't quite pick up on what it was. But it really freaked me out, because for about a week after that, I kept seeing those chairs, and they were always partially moved around, and I really didn't like that. But I didn't feel like I was ever in danger of being knocked down the stairs, but it felt like it was just angry and wanting to convey some sort of message. That's probably my creepiest paranormal one.
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think what mine would be. Everybody's heard my stories around here. They're bored of them. You know? Boredom.
But one thing I should mention before I forget about, so just bear with me for 1 second, is if you're having a lot of ET encounters and you find that you're feeling crap or sensing ET energy or just feel like you're being watched, Dave, like how you felt the other day when you and Mrs. SOR were out in the woods, you may notice a lot of really weird technical disturbances. So, like I said earlier, you could be sitting in your living room and your DVD player pops open, or your touch lamps go from being off to being on, or go from being the low setting up to high. Things like that can be really common with it. I find it's kind of weird when you have these extraterrestrials moving around in your home, especially when they start to move things. Now, you might not necessarily see a glass float across the room, but you may notice, hey, look, I put my glass on the kitchen table. Why is it now at the other side of the kitchen table? The kids aren't home, or things like that. It can be really freaky when those kind of things happen, because it takes you back and it's like, oh, wait, no, I'm not home alone. Okay, just relax. Do you understand?
I understand. I'm just, while you were saying that, trying to figure out, you know what, that's probably one of the experiences I either haven't had or just have not noticed yet, Samantha, is the fact that I have not seen anything move in my house. And maybe that's maybe that's a good thing to have, you know, but on the flip side, I don't recall ever seeing something move.
Then you are very, very lucky.
Yeah, but I know if you say, oh, don't worry, Dave, it's coming. Well, you kind of proved that theory numerous times in regards to what you said was coming. So I have to be wary if you say, hey, it's coming, that it is going to come for me. But, you know, that's one thing I have learned from you. Let's see. Let me have a count here. There was the extraterrestrial in the forest. There was the extraterrestrial abduction. There was the ET in the forest where I said I didn't want to go, and you confirmed that with me, that it was a malevolent type out there. What else can I project on you and blame you for? Oh, yes, waking up on the table.
That's okay, though. Those aren't bad.
Well, it wasn't bad, but it just seems like you're like my prophecy of contact. Prophecy of contact. Maybe that's what I'm going to call your show from now on. Prophecy.
Whatever makes you happy, go for it.
Uh-huh. Oh, I'm being told now from Stone, Dave, watch your wardrobe door tonight. Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, that wouldn't surprise me. Although I did have an experience kind of last night.
Oh, what happened?
Well, I shall fill you in. And what happened last night was the little guy was crying, so I went to his bedroom to pick him up and bring him into bed with us after the show. This is probably around, I'm going to say 1:30 in the morning. And long story short, Mrs. SOR snuggled up on my left shoulder. I had the little guy on my right shoulder, and I'm kind of caught in the middle with everybody kind of surrounding me, which I'm okay with because I kind of like that stuff. And all of a sudden, the salt lamp goes out that's on the dresser. Now, nobody has moved, so the cord isn't going to jiggle or anything like that. And I had remembered moments before that, man, the salt lamp looks bright tonight. I wish it would turn off so I could, get that light glare out of my eyes. So I have my eyes closed, and all of a sudden, everything is really dark. I open up my eyes, and, of course, the salt lamp is out. So thinking that that's weird in my eyesight here, I say, can you please turn the salt lamp back on, please? And boom, the salt lamp comes back on, like immediately. And now I got the goosebumps going down, because I kind of freak out when stuff like that happens, and it's a good freak out, So I'm looking all around my room, wondering, is it aliens? Is it a ghost? What the hell was doing that? Because I'm not picking anything up. Can't see any shadows, any outlines, any orbs, nothing. And I'm still trying to figure out what that was. So that kind of tripped me out last night. So there's a little bit of a brand new... No, I didn't say thank you.
Why? They did what you asked twice.
Well, I understand that. I got greedy. I'm going to be honest with you. I got greedy, and I literally said, can you turn it off again, please? Just so I know. Because I've had luck with threes before and stuff like this. And they wouldn't do it. They were quite selfish about it. I'm going to be not going to be honest here. I mean, they were really selfish about it. So I just figured, well, I'm going to let that one go and just hang with that one. I was okay with that because it's just another cool experience to rack up as they continue to mount.
Awesome. I love it.
Well, I know you do. You love this stuff. You love this stuff. I know. You should be your own haunted house.
I'm good. That would be too crazy for me.
Oh, I think
Fun, but crazy.
You could handle it. You're brave enough. You're way braver than I am. You'll go into a forest knowing there's aliens there. Not me.
Yeah, but we can... Aliens are easy. Ghosts, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, too. Hey, let's get to another question here. Mario is asking... He's saying, well, what is he saying? Samantha, since you took Dave on a personal alien visit, would you be willing to do that with other people?
Of course. It'd be entertaining. I find a lot of people that are close to me have had contact with one thing or another while I'm hanging out with them. And it's always been safe, so why not?
I'd like it to happen again. We never did it this summer.
This summer was crazy.
It was.
We could always do winter camping.
That is cold. That is real cold. Well,
you're right. Where we live, that actually is pretty cold.
Well, you know what? Yeah. And we had snow here the other day.
Oh my God, you're kidding me.
No, I'm not. It didn't stick, but put it this way. It was like all of a sudden the other day, the cold winterness just showed up. The other day, it didn't even get to a above temperature. It was in the minuses right through. So it was like, really? Already? Like, come on, guys. You know, it's way too early for this. Way too early for this.
Well, think of it this way, Dave. Our winter tires are on. We're good to go.
Yeah, I haven't got mine on yet.
Never mind. You might want to do that soon.
I'm a procrastinator, man. I'm a procrastinator. That's just the way I like to do things, but you never know. You never know with what is going to go on. That's all I can say. But anyways, Samantha, we have about 20 minutes left with you. Mm-hmm. When it comes to ghosts and the paranormal, mm-hmm. do you feel that in behind the scenes, on their realm, that they are actually seeing what one or the other is actually doing? So for instance, let's say we have an extraterrestrial in a room and we got a ghost in the room. Even though their vibration levels are different, would they be able to see each other or communicate with each other?
I believe that the extraterrestrial could see the ghost, but I do not feel as though the ghost would have the capability to see the extraterrestrial. Because the ghost, if it is a human that has passed over and it's operating, let's say it's in limbo, where it's walking around Earth because its soul got freaked out, decided not to cross, it died unexpectedly, it decided, you know what, I'm just going to look around, I'm going to get my bearings, and I'll figure out what to do. Then that is still a human whose vibration is operating within a similar range to what it was when it died. So if they were able to perceive extraterrestrials or multidimensionals before they passed, yes, they could perceive them on that side. However, and that said, if that person is not able to perceive them, and let's say that you're in a house that's having haunting activities and there's some sort of multidimensional being that's feeding off the paranormal fear that people have when they go into that home, then you may not be able to see it unless you go to the lower astral, which is occupied by some darker beings, in which case it doesn't matter if you're psychic or not, you're going to see them because they're in full flesh, but we're not getting into that today. That is way too dark. It really depends. If you talk to multidimensionals, they will talk to a bit about the deceased. Many of the multidimensionals I've talked about, or talked to when I've asked them, hey, look, is my grandmother still here? They'll explain, do you not know they've either decided to reincarnate already, which has been the case for a few people, or no, their body's gone, their soul's in healing because they needed it, but they don't often mention how people are in ghost form. But if you do the opposite and you do mediumship and you try to talk to those people who have passed about multidimensionals or extraterrestrials, they will get very annoyed at you asking you why you're not passing on messages to their deceased or to their living loved ones. They don't often want to talk about things that are esoteric in nature. So it's hard to get full information from either party, at least in my experience, Dave.
And we just had that happen just the other night where you helped me get in communication with my friend who had just passed away.
Mm-hmm. You seem nice, by the way.
That was a trippy experience. I don't know if I would actually want to do that again. It was,
I agree.
You know, for those who didn't tune in to a show earlier last week, I had a friend of mine pass away. And basically what I was shown was that he was panic-stricken on the other side. And I was feeling his anxiety because he was an atheist, didn't believe in anything, thought life was a one and done type adventure. And all of a sudden, here he is, and he is sitting on the stairwell where he passed away, and sitting in absolute black with a little bit of panic going on because he didn't know really what the hell was going on. And I got hit with an anxiety attack, and I immediately got a hold of Samantha, because Samantha is the one I go to for things like this, and said, I feel like I need to go over there or try to communicate with him on that side. So Samantha walked me through everything. But it was dark, it was eerie, it was something that I don't think that I would want to go to, because one thing Samantha had told me through that process was, on the other side, there are, how would we put it? There are beings that, how do you put it, that hunt souls.
Yeah, they do.
Are you unzipping something?
No, I was zipping something up. I need to get socks, sorry. It's freezing. My feet are cold. Please continue.
Anyways. See, I got good ears that way. Anyways. So what's happened here in this situation was Samantha walked me through a channeling type session where I went in and I communicated with my friend, and I helped him get out of that darkness, and I don't want to say come to the light, because I think that would be an incorrect term, but help get him back on path, because he didn't know he was dead. He was just sitting there all confused. And it was an extremely surreal type situation. So when you see something like that going on, Samantha, and you see beings that are either trapped or they are lost, or I don't know how else to really put it, how do you deal with getting their vibration up when they're already on the other side?
Typically, I try to avoid the lower astral as much as possible, because it is a vibration that makes me very uncomfortable, and I tend to get migraines from it quite quickly. But one thing you can do for people who, let's say tonight any of you go to sleep, and when you're on the other side, like you find yourself awake and you're astral projecting, you're in the lower astral, and you're talking to someone who's scared or trapped or feels like they can't move beyond where they are, praying doesn't work in the conventional sense. It really doesn't. But you can get them to connect into their heart space or their heart chakra, which will automatically raise their vibration if they're focusing on more of that love energy. Or you can get them to call their spirit guides, because the guides you work with while you're alive will carry over with you until you're fully no longer incarnated. So they'll help you review your life and everything else. And if you get stuck in limbo, well, they'll wait for you while you're in that transitioning phase. It's kind of like waiting for someone when they're on the bus type thing.
So when I saw those black eyes that were all around him, what were they? What were those creatures?
Well, they're beings that inhabit that world. They did not feel kind. They did feel malevolent. They didn't feel like they had good intentions towards him at all. And from what I felt, to be very honest, they felt reptilian to me.
I will never forget seeing those eyes. They were absolutely cold and eerie. That's all
They're ruthless.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It was completely, lack of a better term, sounding unprofessional here, freaky. It was completely freaky.
But that's the thing, though, Dave. You were lucky enough to be looking at this with 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out of it. He was 2 feet in that world.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine the amount of terror he would be going through, being in that position where he doesn't believe in anything, doesn't have a connection towards any form of universal or creator force? That could be a very scary world to go to.
Yes, I can't see where that would be pleasant. And I'm glad to this day that you walked me through that.
But here's the thing, Dave. That is not my gift. We have a lot of very gifted mediums out there, or people who are shamanistic in nature, who naturally connect onto that side very easily and have this amazing gift for pulling people forward and through that world and into a better, more aligned one. Those are the people you want to talk to if you find that you're getting pulled to the lower astral and talking to people who are having that kind of experience. You can help people get out of that world, but it does take some effort, and that's not something that I'm well educated on.
Mm-hmm. I hear you there. Let's get to a question from Paul here. Earlier you were saying that you felt that ghosts were scarier than aliens. He's saying, wouldn't an alien be scarier? A ghost is just a dead human for the most part, but aliens are completely foreign.
But you got to remember, think of it this way. From my understanding, I know what to expect with the majority of the extraterrestrials that I encounter. You can read their energy really quickly and have an idea of what they want. Humans are sporadic. Humans as a whole don't really follow any set pattern. It's like herding kittens or trying to determine what a kitten's going to do. Is it going to bite you or is it going to play with you? It can be, and if you think about people and they cross to the other side, okay, well, when did this person cross? How did they die? Are they still traumatized by that event? Because that can affect whether that ghost decides to follow you around in your day-to-day life and annoy the heck out of you or decide to startle you all the time. Versus an extraterrestrial or multidimensional isn't as likely to invest the same degree of energy because they have other things that they're wanting to focus on or do. For people who are in contact, I'm not the only person that any of the beings that come to me are seeing. They are seeing hundreds of other people easily. I'm just another little pawn in their game, so to speak. Another tool to help raise humanity's consciousness versus a ghost. If you think about it, these beings have passed and they don't really have the same objectives of what they need to do. So if they enjoy tormenting you or irritating you, they can easily follow you around from house to house, town to town. To me, that's a little more intimidating than an extraterrestrial.
So,
but that's just me.
Samantha, Shar is asking you, did you learn all of this information that you have acquired from your extraterrestrial contacts?
No. No, you have to look at information from many different sources to get a good idea. Because you got to remember, Shar, the majority of the extraterrestrials are not going to lie to you, but some of them will give you information that is beneficial on their behalf to cast them in a certain light. I do a lot of reading to get an idea of what other contactees experienced, to see, okay, are these beings showing me a facade? Are these beings actually kind? What's actually happening here? Because when you have this much contact, your mind does become obsessive on it, and you're constantly analyzing it, trying to get a better idea. So I do talk to a lot of other contactees or abductees in my labs and be like, hey, look, I'm having this happen. What are you experiencing with this group, or what are you experiencing around this location, or things of that nature, trying to get a better idea of what's really happening.
Do you ever get sick of it, though, Samantha?
That's me, though.
Do you ever get sick of it and just figure, why can't this go away? Why can't I just have a simple, normal life with the picket fence? I mean, you've got your kids, you've got, the life that a lot of people would like to have, but there's also this hidden contact that you have. Would you, if it walked away tomorrow, would you be okay with that?
I'm sorry, Dave, you cut out.
Well, what I am asking is...
Hello?
Can you hear me okay? Are we losing you on Skype?
No, I can, but you were...
Oh, weird.
You were, but that's okay. What's the second part? Sorry.
Well, the second part of the question is...
Got a normal life, got the picket fence.
Okay. If you could give up your ET contact to live a normal, everyday life, would you do that?
No, never. Definitely not. The thought of living a normal life where I'm going throughout life with my blinders on and just doing things from a normal perspective sounds painfully dreary. I would rather know the truth of what's actually happening in the world than go around life without actually knowing what's really happening.
I can see that. Do you feel then that, lack of a better term, that maybe you've been ripped off somehow because you haven't been able to enjoy anything, quote, end quote, normal?
I guess in one perspective, yeah, maybe. But, I mean, what is normal? there really doesn't seem to be a strong normal to me. I mean, within my family, having contact does seem to be normal. So yeah, I'd kind of be the black sheep if I didn't have something odd or paranormal going on, wouldn't I? I may be weird to society, but to my family, society's weird.
So when you look all around you, and I'm trying to guess, paint a perspective on what you go through on a daily basis with this contact, to bring you our listeners a little bit closer to you, the way I know you personally. When you are, say, going grocery shopping, or you are going to the airport like you did, or you're on a long drive, or you're sitting in the bathtub, do you not feel that this entire process for you has been maybe an invasion of privacy?
Oh, I don't have privacy, Dave. There is no such thing as having privacy when you talk to people's spirit guides, or talk to your own guides, or you talk to multidimensionals. You could be having like a shower, and then all of a sudden you'll have a new, like one time I was having a shower, and one of my husband's guides decides to pop and be like, "Hi, I'm Rafi. This is what I do, and this is how I'm helping him, and this is how I'm helping you." And it was just really funny. It's like, really, like the kids finally get to sleep, and this is my alone time, and all of a sudden I've got a guide talking to me. Great. Thanks, guys. No privacy. Or like even the day that he and I got married, I was sitting at the table with him, and we were so excited because we had got married and what have you, and we're in Vegas, whatever, eloping. And I kept getting messages for the people around me. It's like, oh, I feel like I should share these, but that really doesn't feel right because I'm supposed to be focusing on me and you, that type of thing. So yeah, there is no such thing as privacy. And yeah, some days I do wonder what it's like to not look at your stewardess and be like, okay, I can tell that you're actually really not liking your job, and you're feeling depressed, and that you've got this going on, and that you're really stressed out about your mom. Okay, stuff like that can be frustrating when you look at someone and you can see how stressed they are, and you know that you can't say anything because they didn't ask you. It can be a little challenging. But on the same hand, if you know these things about people, and you know that the reason why your stewardess or whatever is being really grumpy and kind of off-putting is because they have a lot going on, then you can realize, okay, I need to actually show this person more kindness and not judge them and not be mean to them, which a lot of people probably would do, right?
I can see that. So when you have that happen, how do you control your own instincts to say, no, I'm not going to go up to that person in the shopping mall or the stewardess at 38,000 feet?
Well, pretty simply. You just look at that person and you very gently talk to them. Like, let's say, Dave, you and I are walking through a shopping mall, and let's say a man walks past me, and let's say he and I don't make eye contact, but his guides are pushing me to send him a message. Well, if I turn around and send some of my energy towards his direction, if he doesn't respond, or if he doesn't show any energetic interest in communicating, then no, I'm not going to go up to that person, because that'd be a complete invasion. But if we're walking and I make eye contact with someone and I just say hi, and they're like, hello, then I may end up being like, nice day, how are you, blah, 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 and try to initiate a conversation, then pass on a message. You have to really gauge people energetically as to what they're willing to receive before you actually give a message. Because for some people, hearing that their deceased Uncle Joe might be too much for them on a Tuesday afternoon.
I hear you there. We only have a couple minutes left with you. And once again, I want to say thank you for taking the time all the way from your vacation in Scotland, where a family member is getting married very soon, and you guys are attending that wedding. So I think that's really cool of you to do that for our audience. It really shows them and me, which I already knew, what kind of person you are, Samantha. How could people get in touch with you in case they want a reading, in case they would like to learn more about their ET contact?
So I always go to my website at www.samanthamowat.ca, or send me an email at samanthamowat@live.com. I might take a couple weeks to get back to you. My phone seems to be pretty shoddy when it comes to receiving messages right now. I've got another one I'm supposed to be picking up as soon as I get home. But please just, if you want to understand more about your contact, ask your guides to bring you the right person. If you'd like to talk to me about it, great. Feel free to send me an email. I'd love to chat to you about it. But if you don't mind, I'd love for you to check out my YouTube videos. Just type in Samantha Mowat. A whole bunch should come up. I've got, I think, 15 on there. I have about another 100 and something to go.
Samantha?
So yeah, that's it.
Samantha, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Everyone's giving you high praise and thank yous all over the chat rooms because they absolutely love you. And we will talk to you again on Tuesday, November 8th.
Perfect. It's nice talking to you guys. Have a good night.
Absolutely. You hold up. I'm wrapping this thing up. If you're on the Space Out Radio side, you're hearing Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, singing away with Little Brother is Watching, which means it's time for us to get ready to go bye-bye for the night. Remember, you can catch this show and all of our other shows on TuneIn, on iTunes, on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Follow me on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. But the main thing that I want, if you could give me any gift, Mr. and Mrs. Audience, tell a friend. Tell them about this show. If they're into these topics and they're looking for something fresh, something new, tell them about Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring this family together. Let's make it larger. Let's put the energy out there. And on that note, I'm out of here. We'll talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. It's always a pleasure to be with you each and every night, Monday through Friday. Tomorrow night on the show, we will be joined by Allison Yellowknee, her ET contact experiences, right from the heart of Alberta, Canada. It's going to be a great show tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, spacedoutradio.com. Spread the word. That's how we're ending this show every night. Help us spread the word. It's all on you. And I'm doing it too. Talk to you tomorrow.